to begin deliberations today as the historic criminal trial draws to a close.
The former president's fate now in the hands of 12 New Yorkers as we await their highly anticipated verdict. Brooke Singman here with all the details. Quite a day yesterday, Brooke.
Yeah, that's right, guys. Court resumes this morning at 10 Eastern. Judge Mershon will give instructions to the jury, which should take about an hour, and then they will begin deliberating. In total, jurors heard about 8 hours of closing arguments yesterday. Court went late to accommodate the prosecution's nearly 5-hour-long presentation, which focused mainly on whether their star witness, Michael Cohen, could be trusted. Meanwhile, Trump attorney Todd Blanche spent the majority of his closing arguments attacking Cohen's credibility and calling him the MVP of liars. And Trump's legal spokesperson, Alina Habba, is slamming the case altogether. Listen.
There was not one bit of evidence that showed that Donald Trump had an intent to commit any crime. And I'm still, as I sit here as an attorney, trying to understand how they could have possibly brought this at this point, wasted this much taxpayer dollars, passed the statute of limitations, and then had the audacity to make a jury sit there until 8 o'clock with a bunch of nonsense.
And after weeks of avoiding the trial, the Biden campaign showed up outside of the courthouse for an event of their own, taking jabs at the former president with the help of Hollywood actor Robert De Niro.
I love this city. I love this city. I don't want to destroy it. Donald Trump wants to destroy not only the city, but the country, and eventually he could destroy the world. I owe this city a lot. And that's why it's so weird that Donald Trump is just across the street, because he doesn't belong in my city. But this city is pretty accommodating. We make room for clowns, but not a person like Trump who will eventually run the country. That does not work.
The jury will deliberate until 4:30 this afternoon and continue tomorrow if a verdict is not reached. Deliberations could last anywhere from a few hours to a few weeks.
We got the Western memes with Donald Trump. High noon in New York City. The Trump trial is officially over. The judge is given jury instructions. The jury may acquit Trump during the show live, ladies and gentlemen. This is a historic day. We have no idea how long the jury deliberations may take, but they could happen live on the show today, and we are prepared. We are ready to go. We have been waiting for this moment for Donald Trump to become the most acquitted man in American history. Are you ready for the ticker tape parades? Okay, today is Wednesday, May 29th, 2024. Jury gets instructions in preparations for deliberations. We're going to go through those instructions. Some of them are actually good. Some of them are really, really not good. Some of them are incredibly corrupt. But ladies and gentlemen, inside the reporting from the court, this case is lost. We'll bring you all of the information. Secret Service prepares for the possibility of Trump going to jail. I don't think that's going to happen. And we have an action-packed all-star show ready for you. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. Okay, so we're going to jump right into it, ladies and gentlemen. We got live updates from the trial. You can see here we'll be tracking from inside of the court, and we'll be hopefully joined by some people who have been in the court this morning. We're working, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to, if we think there's going to be a decision on this, we're just going to keep the show going for the next 4 hours. We're just going to be ready to roll today. Okay? We got live updates from inside the Trump trial. Let's check the live ticker right now from the Daily Mail. So, judge to jurors set aside any bias or opinions about Donald Trump. This is the last entry here for the 12 Manhattan residents that will decide 77-year-old Donald Trump's fate on this crime. The jury, ladies and gentlemen, has heard the orders for this 34-count Donald Trump charge. Judge Juan Merchan has urged the jurors to set aside any bias or opinions in favor against Donald Trump. He has also instructed them to consider only the evidence. Merchan reminds the jurors that the defendant is presumed to be innocent. You must find the defendant not guilty unless you conclude that the people have proven him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, he says. So I'm telling you, you can see the good, the bad, and the ugly here. Good, the bad, and the ugly. Jerry, that's a good Western meme. We're doing Western memes all week, ladies and gentlemen, for Donald Trump. In fact, load up the meme from yesterday. I want to load up. Actually, we have two Western memes that I want to load up. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and Tombstone from yesterday. Very, very good. It's high noon in New York. Get ready, baby. We're going to rock and roll. There is no limitation on the jury deliberations. All it takes is one juror to find Donald Trump not guilty, to have a hung jury, right? Where someone's like, no, I'm not going to convict an innocent man. If you get one, then that's it. And that's it. Then you get the hung jury. They're not going to bring a retrial. The whole point of this was to do something to get Donald Trump before the election. This is the instructions. Let's pop it back up, please. This is the instructions. You must find the defendant not guilty unless you conclude that the people have proved him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. How is that possible? When the people who are the star witnesses are demon lady porn star Stormy Daniels and known serial liar Michael Cohen. He also tells the jurors the fact that Trump did not testify is not a fact of any inference that should be drawn. Merchan reminds them that the defendant is not required to prove that he is not guilty. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a massive, massive potential day. Now, we have some pretty unbelievable and shocking reporting from inside and outside of the court today. Let's head on over here to Andrew Giuliani. This is Andrew Giuliani's, this is Rudy Giuliani's son, Andrew Giuliani, saying, and he has been obviously an incredible source of information from inside of the court today. And throughout this trial, he's sat right behind Donald Trump within distance to like tap Donald Trump on the shoulder. Andrew Giuliani, who is himself a legal professional, saying during the break in the bathroom, one of the members of the media said, the prosecution has totally lost the jury. I'm looking at them. They look lost. I'm counting 7 not guilty votes. Now, this may just be one person's opinion, but this is what's coming out of the court. It was a bit of a disaster yesterday. Now, you can see here, ladies and gentlemen, from Giuliani, also this morning, that Merchan is explaining reasonable doubt to the jury. If you are not convinced that the defendant is guilty beyond reasonable doubt of a crime, you must not convict the defendant of a crime. How is it possible that they are able to convict Donald Trump based on the absurdity of the charges in this case? How is it possible? However, we do live in horribly corrupted times. In fact, we live in times that it is impossible to distinguish parody from reality. Here's an article from the Babylon Bee. This article from the Babylon Bee, May 28th, 2024, judge instructs jurors they need not believe Trump is guilty to convict him. So this is supposed to be a joke, right? This is supposed to be a joke from the Bee. It says here from the Babylon Bee, this is a parody site. As the criminal trial involving President Donald Trump winds to a close, the presiding judge instructed jurors that they don't have to believe Trump is guilty to convict him. And then lo and behold, today, Juan Merchan told the jury that they don't need to unanimously convict. 4 could agree to convict on one crime, 4 on a different one, and 4 on another, he said, and he would treat that as a 4-4-4 unanimous verdict. Now, no legal expert, ladies and gentlemen, will be joined in the program by legal experts on the show, but I don't quite understand, like, how the hell is that even possible? This is from John Roberts at Fox News. What does that even mean? We look forward to asking, but is this Babylon Bee, once again, making a future prediction, and that prediction coming true. 4 could agree on one crime. This isn't a parody account, right? I'm looking at it. No, this is John Roberts of Fox News, the John Roberts of Fox News, right? The guy, straight news reporter, right? Juan Merchan just told the jury that they do not need unanimity to convict. 4 could agree on one crime, 4 on another, and 4 on another, and he would treat that as a 4-4-4 unanimous verdict. What the hell is this? Zimbabwe? What? Ladies and gentlemen, we are very much looking forward to seeing what comes out of this court. Those inside of the court are saying there is no way that they find Donald Trump guilty, that they've lost the jury. Also, interestingly enough, Michael Avenatti coming to the defense of Donald Trump, of all people. Michael Avenatti posting yesterday that the fact that it's taking, and I'm not sure if we have this in the show, but let's go ahead and grab it. Of all people, Michael Avenatti, and we have reached out to Michael Avenatti. We would like to bring him on the show. He's in prison right now, so it's kind of hard, but he can do call-ins, right? So it'd be quite interesting. He knows Stormy Daniels really well, and I think it'd be a fascinating interview. We've reached out to Avenatti. Again, it's hard to book him because he is in jail right now. Michael Avenatti posting, though, on X, that the fact that taking the prosecution hours and hours and hours, they deliberated well into the evening last night. So the closing arguments for the prosecution was like 5 hours long, ALX? The clearest sign yet, says Michael Avenatti, of all people, that the hush money case should never have been filed or tried is the fact that the prosecution team believes they need a 4-hour closing argument to convince the jury. This alone demonstrates the loads of reasonable doubt, and it compels a not guilty verdict. Apparently during this this absolutely crazy long marathon of a closing argument. And the closing argument should just pretty much be like, we've proved our case. Here's what the law says. Our client's guilty. The end. We're going to ask Mike Davis about this on the show. Like, what's the right way to actually execute a closing argument? This should be a very simple, like, here's the law. Here's what our client did. The end. If it takes you 4 hours, you have real trouble. But again, I guess we'll see. Donald Trump in court this morning, as we always play Donald Trump's commentary. There was no commentary from Trump this morning, but there was a physical gesture, and we'll show you that right now.
Oh, the former president walking into court. He did not speak to cameras today, but you got the wave and the fist bump and a little bit of that before going into that courtroom where the jury will be given the instructions. Welcome to a brand.
So Donald Trump doing the triumphant fist bump this morning, as you know Donald Trump to do. Michael Avenatti saying that they haven't proven beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge saying you can't convict Donald Trump unless they have proven beyond all reasonable doubt that he's guilty. Yet the judge still trying to rig the trial. Very interesting and confusing jury instructions. Did they prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump was guilty? Well, the answer is no. But you don't have to believe me. I obviously really like Donald Trump a lot and consider myself a member of the America First movement. Listen to CNN in a moment of absolute shocking clarity and clear-eyed sobriety from a legal expert on CNN yesterday. This guy will never be on the air again. Trust me when I tell you that this man will never get another second of airtime on CNN because of what he just said about reasonable doubt and Donald Trump. This is CNN.
You're listening to all of this. You think they fell short? How?
They fell way short because let's start with reasonable doubt. What is reasonable doubt? And it's not simply a doubt based upon reason. Anytime a human being needs to make an important decision in life, if you have enough information, for example, doctor says you need open heart surgery. Doc, go ahead and schedule. I don't have a reasonable doubt. Conversely, if I say, I appreciate it, but I need a second opinion, I need more information, That is having a reasonable doubt. There is reasonable doubt all over this case. Where is Keith Schiller? Where is Alan Weisselberg? How did Michael Cohen get away with stealing $30,000? Hold a pity party for him. Made $4 million on this. Thought he'd be chief of staff. He's a fixer. If the plumber comes to my house to fix my leak, I could be home. That doesn't mean I know how he's doing it and what it's taking to be fixed. Stormy Daniels, let's hold a pity party for her. Why do we need to know whether or not the former president wore a condom or not? It's simply about, did the former president know that books, his records, false entries for legal fees? Michael Cohen was his lawyer. Did he intend to cover up the election or to protect his family? It's everywhere.
When Randy gets to whisper tones, I start getting concerned.
Listen to the anchor. Listen to the way the anchor treats this guy that just went napalm, 1971 Vietnam level napalming of this case. Listen to the way that the CNN anchor's like, okay, all right, enough. Okay, calm down. This guy's saying that the bringing of Michael Cohen, a known perjurer, a man who's done prison for lying to Congress, a man who lied to the court there in New York, a man who you don't know if he's lying now or lying then, a man who paid Stormy Daniels out of his own bank account without Donald Trump's knowledge to try and hide it from his wife, to try and curry some favor to become chief of staff, and just like Chris Christie just becomes embittered and angry and decides that he doesn't want to be loyal to Trump anymore. He's just going to backstab him. These people are rats. They're rats. And there's a lot of those people who felt like they were owed something. It's amazing. You know, I lived in D.C. for so long, and I was up close to the Trump administration. We interviewed Trump inside the Oval Office. I knew a lot of people in there, and there's this very thin-skinned, limp-wristed, feline, feminine energy of these people who thought that they would get these huge payouts or these huge positions with Trump, and the moment they don't get that, they turn on him. Michael Cohen's just one of those people. George Conway's another one of those people. It's pretty amazing, these photos of George Conway crying at Donald Trump's victory party in New York in 2016. He's like sobbing. You can see the tears in his eyes. And then he, as soon as he doesn't get what he feels like he deserves from Donald Trump, then he turns on him and has now become like the biggest TDS apparatchik in corporate media, to his great shame. The whole point of all of this was to hurt Donald Trump in the polls. The whole point of all of this, you saw the total and complete embarrassment of yesterday with Robert De Niro, trotting out Robert De Niro and a bunch of other clowns in a clown car to go defend Biden. The whole point was to try and flip the scales for Biden in an unwinnable election for Joe Biden. How well is that working out? The salt is flowing at a pretty constant rate through the CNN studios. Check this out from this morning. Backfire right now, ladies and gentlemen. Voters don't care.
Think Trump did something illegal in the New York hush money case. I've been interested in whether or not these numbers would change at all during the course of this trial. Simply put, John, they have not. Pre-opening statements think Trump did something illegal, 46%. After the direct examination of Michael Cohen by the prosecution, look at where we are now, 46%. The percentage of Americans who think that the charges are very serious, in fact, dropped from 40% to a little bit more than 35% during the course of this trial. So, yes, perhaps things might have changed with those 12 jurors, but when it comes to the larger American public, there has been no change, at least so far, John.
Any possible reasons why?
Yeah, I think the question is, what's exactly cooking here? Why hasn't there been much of a change? While folks like you and me, real news junkies, might be paying really close attention to what's going on, the fact is most Americans don't really care that much. So closely following news about economy inflation, that's number one at 65%. Look at immigration, 52%. Election legitimacy, 49%. abortion 47%, all the way down on this list of issues tested by the Ipsos Knowledge Panel is Trump's court cases at 42%, significantly less than economy inflation. The fact is, John, when we're looking at these numbers, what we see is Americans' minds aren't changing, and a big reason why Americans' minds aren't changing is at this particular point, John, they are tuned out of the conversation.
This is an incredible backfire. This is the backfire of the century right now. There you have CNN, their data analyst, a guy named Harry Enton, that this is his entire job is to sit here and go through the crosstabs, these polls, what he went to school for, saying the American people are actually more in favor of Trump after this trial. Alex, can you grab that policy market? Can you grab the policy market polling? It's incredible. What this trial has done has been to build up Donald Trump's electoral reservoir in swing states, to absolutely fortify his polling, to take the probability of him becoming president in the markets, and to increase it exponentially. You want to know what the backfire looks like? Check out this data right here from Policy Market. Presidential winner. April 15th, the day that the trial started, the day it started, Trump was a 1-point favorite. April 15th. Today, Donald Trump is up nearly 20 points on that. Check this out. This is remarkable. Polymarket, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump exploding in his probability, his institutional probability of becoming president. The Cook Political Report this morning, as of this morning, says that Donald Trump favored to be president. Republicans favored to take back the Senate. Republicans favored to keep the House and increase their majority. Based on the Cook Political Report, which is left-leaning, to be polite about it. This is the single greatest backfire in American history. Donald Trump this morning on Truth Social, he didn't say anything when he walked in front of the cameras, but here's what he said, and it made a lot of sense to us. Again, we look forward to asking Mike Davis about this in a few moments. Kangaroo Court, a corrupt and conflicted judge, reliance on counsel, advice of counsel, not allowed by Merchan, a first. So this is Donald Trump saying, my lawyer told me to do this. Why am I being prosecuted for something my lawyer told me to do? This is like incredibly important. When you have expert, like, you can hold your doctor accountable. You can sue your doctor if your doctor, who's the expert, does an unnecessary surgery or botched surgery on you, or does some medical procedure that's unnecessary. You can hold them accountable. This is Donald Trump. Donald Trump's does not have a JD. Michael Cohen has the JD. Michael Cohen told him to do this. Donald Trump continuing. His ruling on a case that should, according to all legal scholars and experts, have never been brought, have made this Biden-pushed witch hunt was not a crime except for the bum that got caught stealing from me. In God we trust. I like the "in God we trust" there. Let's pop this back up on screen. I want to be able to read through here. So Donald Trump's effectively saying, why am I not able to just have the defense? Why am I not able to just have the defense? Like, my lawyer told me to do this. And breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, breaking news as of 1 minute ago. The jury of Manhattanites have been dismissed from the courtroom to begin deliberations on the innocence or guilt of the leading candidate for president of the United States, the 45th president of the United States, Donald J. Trump. This could happen in the next 5 minutes. There is nothing that says they need to deliberate for a day or for an hour. This could happen in the next 5 minutes. The verdict on this case could happen and might happen live on this program right now. There is no way that they are going to convict Donald Trump. Given what we have seen out of this court, there is no evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Beyond a reasonable doubt? No. to convict Donald Trump. The jury is officially in deliberations right now. Ladies and gentlemen, Donald Trump has been gagged and was not allowed to speak, but Don Jr., his son, was allowed to speak. Donald Trump brought a full phalanx of support to the court yesterday, and a strong man, you can always judge by the strength of his children. Now ask yourself, if the measure of a man is the values of his children and how they turn out, then we need to measure Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Would you prefer to have Hunter Biden as your child? Or would you prefer to have Don Jr., Eric Trump, Ivanka Trump as your children? Donald Trump did a fantastic job raising his kids, and his kids are honorable and good people, and we know them personally. And I'm not just saying that. What I'm saying is we've seen them up close, behind the scenes. And you can be proud of a son who stands in the center of Manhattan, stops traffic when his father is being politically persecuted, and sounds like this. Here's Don.
Blanche summed it up best. If there was an MVP, if there was a GOAT of liars, it is Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen is the embodiment of reasonable doubt. And this entire case hinges on someone who has quite literally lied to every single person and body he's ever been in front of. He's lied before, I believe it's every branch of Congress. He's lied before his wife. He's lied to every body he's ever been in front of. He's lied before, I believe it's every branch of Congress. He's lied before his wife. He's lied to bankers. He's lied to all of you in the press. And he's actually lied to that very jury. And yet, he's the only person of relevance that this entire case hinges on. We understand that this is a political persecution. That was evidenced today by the Biden campaign themselves holding a rally here. They bring in Robert De Niro, who was shot down, but apparently he needs attention because it's been a while since he's cranked out a good movie. But think about it. They bring out one actor. Remember in 2020 when every A-list actor in the world showed up for Joe Biden, they lined up one by one? Now they get one person. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson disavowed, said, hey, listen, I regret voting for him. Cardi B, all the people that lined up behind Joe Biden understand that he has failed our country. He has failed the citizens of this nation. Frankly, he has failed the world. But the fact that they're holding a rally across the seat from this very witch hunt, right across the street, tells us exactly what we all knew all along, that it is a political persecution. It is a witch hunt. There is a reason one of the people sitting at that desk was the number 3 person in Joe Biden's DOJ. I know my father is not allowed to say Matthew Colangelo in his name, right? Because he's been gagged. The President of the United States is not allowed to exercise his First Amendment rights in New York City in this day and age. Does that not tell us all everything we need to know about what we're witnessing? It's a witch hunt. They're using it as a political fundraiser, just like this very judge's daughter has profited from this very case. It is an insanity. It is an embarrassment. It's an abomination to democracy and to our republic. And yet it continues. Everyone in this case is conflicted, and it hinges on one man who's not just a liar, convicted, someone who's lost his law license, has been disbarred, someone who's served jail time for lying before congressional bodies. And that's it. That's where we are today in America. This is a sham. It's insane, and it needs to stop, because if you think for 1 second that this ends with Donald Trump, you have not been watching what's going on in the Democrat Party in the last few years. They want power at any and all costs. Your rights be damned. That can't stand. That can't happen. This sham prosecution, this insanity, this abomination has to stop now.
Measure a man by his children. I can't think of a better measure of a man. What are you going to measure a man by? His bank account? I mean, you know, the most evil people on earth, like Jeffrey Epstein has a big bank account. The Hillary Clinton, Nancy Pelosi is worth like $200 million. You can't measure people by the numbers in their accounts. You ever checked in on Nancy Pelosi's kids? oh, you want to see I mean, it's sadder than the Bidens. They're the worst people than the Bidens. These are horrible individuals. These are they're blackened in the soul, and you can see it by the fruits of their tree. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? So what are the children of Nancy Pelosi? Well, Nancy Pelosi's son is like going in and out of court, getting arrested, has like 100 felonies against him. He's like a jailbird. Like he's a complete piece of work, complete and total in shambles, disaster. Same with Hunter Biden. Same with Ashley Biden. Why are we sitting here? Why are we sitting here looking at a trial over an alleged affair in 2005 for a payment that happened in 2007 for a bookkeeping misdemeanor where the statute of limitations have already run out, that needs to be bootstrapped into a bigger felony to even bring a trial, and nobody's been able to elucidate what that crime is? Why are we looking at that? Why are we looking at that? Why are we talking about that right now and not Ashley Biden's diary, where she talks about shower time with dad? Why is that not the trial that we're having? Why are we not having that trial right now? Why is that not the topic of conversation? What about Joe Biden's inability to acknowledge his own grandchildren? How many grandkids does Joe Biden have? If I'm trapped in an elevator with Joe Biden, I have a single question. It's a lot of questions. Probably you might disagree with me. What would you ask Joe Biden if you were trapped in an elevator with him? I tell you what, if I had a camera rolling and I got in an elevator on the floor to ask a question, I go, how many grandkids you got? And the answer to that question would break the internet. Because he doesn't know. Because he's such an evil person, he refuses to acknowledge his own grandchildren. The correct answer is he has 7 grandkids. But Joe Biden doesn't know. He won't acknowledge the out-of-wedlock grandchild that his son had with a stripper. Do you know who's never going to have to worry about that? Happily married, father of 2, who's running the entire Trump empire, real estate empire, Eric Trump, who also stood in the center of Manhattan, shuts down traffic, shuts down New York, and goes big for his father. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Trump with, I think, the strongest statement of all yesterday. Check it out.
So I sit here today as a son. Forget about politics for a second. I've been in that courthouse with my father almost every single day. And not a single New Yorker, as they look at murders in the streets, women getting thrown in front of trains, kids getting shot in Times Square, the degradation of this city, not a single New Yorker believes that over $130,000 payment from 9 years ago, from 8 years ago, that the entire DA's office is lining that courtroom. They're sitting there, they're laughing, they're giggling. This was their moment. This is how they embarrassed Donald Trump. This is legal lawfare. All while this state absolutely melts. Everybody that sits here right now, every single one of you, knows that this is not the same state that we knew 10 years ago. Now, knew it was not the same state as we saw 5 years ago. You have total degradation of New York State because the only thing that Alvin Bragg wants to do, only thing that Letitia James wants to do is criminally prosecute Donald Trump. And they're doing it for one reason. They're doing it because they have a political vendetta. They're all funded by George Soros. That's what this is. This is political lawfare, and it absolutely has to stop. And I watch a man, he's the toughest man I've ever seen, and he endures this nonsense every single day. He sits in that seat, and that's not comfortable. He's never done a damn thing wrong. They tried to impeach him in D.C. They tried to impeach him a second time. They went after his Supreme Court justices. They turned the DOJ, they turned the FBI against him. They couldn't stop him. When that didn't work, guess what they did? They went after his family. They went after me. 110 subpoenas later that I've received. I've never gotten so much as a parking ticket. 110 subpoenas. They went after Don. They went after Laura. They went after little Barron Trump as a young kid, as a young teenager. They went after Tiffany Trump. They tried to make his life hell. And then they weaponized every single DA. They weaponized every AG in every far left area because Biden is incompetent and he's losing in all the polls. Across the board, he's losing in every quantifiable metric. Our country is going to hell. And this is their answer. Go after him for $130,000.
And I want to say sorry to the jury that's in there. This has been the greatest colossal waste of time. I want to say thank you to the NYPD. You have thousands of officers down here. Thousands of officers down here that could be protecting our streets. Instead, they're guarding this courthouse against a sham trial. This has cost New York millions and millions and millions of dollars. And New York deserves so much better than this. And I cannot wait for the day that we win. We will. We're right. The entire country knows that this is nonsense. They don't buy it. A poll just came out from the New York Times. Even Democrats, the vast majority of Democrats, know that this case is a sham, and I think we're going to prevail. And I'm just proud of the toughest person I've ever met in my entire life for having the backbone and fortitude to go through this whole mess, as uncomfortable as it's been. And I'm proud to have stood there every single second by his side in that freezing cold courtroom against unthinkable odds and a corrupt judge and people making a lot of money and this political witch hunt. He's an inspiration to me every single day, and he'll be vindicated. Thank you very much.
How proud would you be if that was your son? I have a son. He's just 7 months old. I have a son. How proud would you be if that was your son? If that was your son standing there defending you in that manner? What an incredible defense by the two Trump boys. There's obviously Barron Trump, but Barron Trump's only 18 years old. And so it fell to the adult sons, Don and Eric, to defend their father, to do so in such a full-throated and honorable way. It makes your heart swell. There's also a really spectacular photo of Donald Trump looking at his children from inside of the court. I'm not sure if we have that on the script, ALX, but let's go ahead and grab that. The person standing also aside them is Trump speaking right now? All right, just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. We may be able to get Donald Trump speaking live right now at the court. We'll get this shortly. Donald Trump is going to be speaking in just a moment, ladies and gentlemen, shortly before the court. Here is the photo that we were talking about with Donald Trump looking at his children proudly, seeing his proud kids there inside of the court. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be able to take Donald Trump live here in just a moment. Laura Trump yesterday commenting as well beside her husband, Eric, and beside her brother-in-law, Don. Laura Trump, of course, is the co-chair of the RNC. She's a very powerful person. She's now in charge of the RNC and delivering for her father-in-law, Laura Trump. Also, imagine being a proud father-in-law and having this as your daughter-in-law. Well done. Let's go.
Well, I don't know what else to say that hasn't been said, but I think it's pretty obvious after all of the evidence has been presented now. We can very clearly see, if you didn't already know, that this was never a case about seeking justice. This was never a case about prosecuting an actual crime. This was never a case about protecting the citizens of the city of New York. This is a case about politics, pure and simple. And it is such a shame, as someone who used to live in this city, to see the top law enforcement officer in the city of New York, Alvin Bragg, sitting up in that courtroom, knowing all the resources he pulled together, all the time, all the taxpayer money in this city that was spent to go into this case when, as Eric just noted, you have crime sky high, people being pushed in front of subways, women getting punched in the face in broad daylight in this city, anti-Semitism spewing out of our universities right here in New York City. They're not caring about any of those crimes. They're not pursuing any of those crimes. They care about this, which we know is not a crime. They have not proven anything to be a crime whatsoever, and they will not. Because at the end of this, we all know what it is about. And to the jury, when they realize these people who have wasted 5 weeks of their time in there, that they have been part of a political game, as New Yorkers, I'm pretty sure they're going to be upset about it. This is not the United States of America if this is successful. This is Banana Republic type stuff. And if they can profit off it on the other side, so can we. DonaldJTrump.com. If you want to contribute to help Donald Trump become the 47th president of the United States. They cannot succeed. They will not succeed. We will continue to fight alongside my father-in-law, our 45th and I believe 47th president, for what we know is true and right. Thank you.
Why would Biden? Imagine if that was your daughter-in-law. Do you have children? How proud would you be if your kids showed up for you like that? When was the last time Joe Biden's kids showed up for him like that? Joe Biden's kids have only ever used their father. And it's not poor Joe Biden. Joe Biden's the reason that his kids are such a disaster. But Hunter Biden's been a jailbird since he was 18. That was the first time Hunter Biden was booked for cocaine. You know that? At 18 years old, Hunter Biden was nabbed in the Jersey Shore for cocaine use and put in prison. Got a mugshot and everything. And daddy had to go bail him out. Could you imagine the absolute train wreck, tire fire, Biden children ever defending their father like that? What an incredible show and sign of the strength of Trump and the value of the guy. To have kids like that, he's got to be just really proud of it. Maybe I get emotional because I have little kids, but I just couldn't. It's got to be every father and mother's dream to see their kids grow up to be like Don Jr., like Eric Trump, Laura Trump. We're really proud to call them all friends, and they've, well, all been on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, on the show, we cover the breaking news live. Donald Trump speaking at the court. Trump did not speak this morning. Donald Trump speaking at the court live now. Let's go to it.
Thank you very much. I would say, in listening to the charges from the judge, who's, as you know, very conflicted and corrupt because of the confliction, very, very corrupt. Mother Teresa could not beat these charges. These charges are rigged. The whole thing is rigged. The whole country's a mess between the borders and fake elections, and you have a trial like this where the judge is so conflicted he can't breathe. He's got to do his job. And it's not for me, that I can tell you. It's a disgrace. And I mean that. Mother Teresa could not beat those charges, but we'll see. We'll see how we do. It's a very disgraceful situation. Every single legal scholar and expert said this is no case. It shouldn't be brought. And it certainly could have been brought 7 years ago, not in the middle of a presidential election. It was all done by Joe Biden. This judge contributed to Joe Biden, and far worse than that, but I'm not allowed to talk about it because I have a gag order. Far worse than that, by 1,000 times worse than that. The worst I've ever heard, but I can't talk about it. It'll be talked about, but I'm not allowed to talk about it. But it'll be talked about in the history books. What's happening here is weaponization at a level that nobody's seen before, ever. And it shouldn't be allowed to happen. So I'll stay around here. This is 5 weeks. And 5 weeks of really essentially not campaigning, although I took a big lead in the polls over the last few weeks. Something's going on. Because I think the people of this country see that this is a rigged deal. It's a weaponized deal for the Democrats to hit their political opponent. For Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States. He's destroying our country. He's letting millions of people from jails, from prisons, from insane asylums, from mental institutions, drug dealers pour in. Venezuela, if you look at their crime statistics, they've gone down 72% in crime because they're releasing all their criminals into our country because of this horrible president that we have. And then they have a protest of Robert De Niro yesterday. He's a fool. He's a broken down fool standing out there, and he got maggot. He got maggot yesterday. He got a big dose of it. But I just want to say it's a very unfair trial.
Maggot.
It should have never happened. If it was going to happen, it should have happened 7 years ago. As you know, Bragg didn't want to bring it. The Southern District didn't bring it. The FEC didn't bring it. This judge didn't even let us use the #1 election attorney. He's making the rules. He doesn't know anything about elections. He doesn't know anything about voting and vote counts. He doesn't know anything about this stuff. That's not his profession. We had the leading election expert in the country, Brad Smith, ready to testify. Wouldn't let him do it. They wouldn't let another gentleman who represented, and you know very well, you saw it. It was the worst I think I've ever seen anyone treated on the stand. Bob Costello wouldn't let him talk about all of the hundreds of emails he was sent by another gentleman who I can't mention because I'm gagged. Every time I speak to you, you ask me simple questions. I'm not allowed to give you the answer because I'm gagged by this judge. But we have a very, very serious problem here. I mean, our country's going bad. And remember, and let me just leave you with this. This is all because of Joe Biden and I don't even think it's him. I don't think he's smart enough to think about it. But it's the people that surround him in the office. They're smart. They're fascists, they're communists, but they're smart. And they're ruining our country. But we're going to win this election. November 5th is going to be the most important day in the history of our country. We're going to take back our country from these fascists and these thugs that are destroying us with inflation and with everything they do, how stupid they are, allowing 15, 16, 17 million people into our country, totally unvetted, totally unchecked. We're going to bring back our nation November 5th. Remember, most important day in the history of our country. In the meantime, this trial is rigged. Thank you.
Would that mean you think of yourself more holy than Mother Teresa?
Are you comparing yourself to Mother Teresa? Are you? Are you comparing yourself to Mother Teresa? These are the questions. All right, amazing, incredible stuff. This is Donald Trump, by every conceivable measure, by every piece of data, by every poll, and we cover all of them. I have an obligation to tell you good news and bad. So if there was bad news for Donald Trump in polling, I'd have to report it. I mean, you're not gonna be able to bend the numbers. Donald Trump's winning in all 7 swing states. That's based on the averages of the polls, not based on the outliers, based on all the averages of the polling. Rasmussen has Donald Trump up 10 nationally right now. Donald Trump is right now beating Joe Biden in Virginia, in New Hampshire. He's within the margin of error in New York and Minnesota. Donald Trump may well win in a landslide, not possible currently. I'm not trying to give you hopium or copium. I can show you the hard data. And so this is what they're pulling with him. What exactly is the counter argument here? Well, yesterday, because it was happening live during the show, we were able to bring you sort of haphazardly Robert De Niro. But if you were wondering what you missed, then here you go, ladies and gentlemen. Robert De Niro with car alarms blaring, with tears rolling down his little cheeks, all 5'3" of him, with the lifts in his shoes. Robert De Niro having a suffering what can only be called a Trump derangement-fueled, orange man bad panic attack live on TV.
I love this city. I don't want to destroy it. Donald Trump wants to destroy not only the city, but the country, and eventually he could destroy the world. I don't mean to scare you. No, wait, maybe I do mean to scare you. If Trump returns to the White House, you can kiss these freedoms goodbye that we all take for granted. And elections, forget about it. Do we want him running this country and saying, I'm not leaving, I'm dictator for life? The only way to preserve our freedoms and hold on to our humanity is to vote for Joe Biden for president. We're trying to be gentlemen in this world. The Democrats, you are gangsters. Excuse me. You are gangsters. You're washed
up. Here we go. Let's put. Do we have this one, Klein? Let's put that. Okay. Here the memes out of this. The memes out of this were really, really special. Robert De Niro saying Donald Trump may be president forever. Donald Trump may well be president forever. He may never ever leave. And how do the people respond to such a threat? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is how I think you and I may respond.
If he gets in, I can tell you right now, he will never leave. He will never leave. You know that. He will never leave. What does that mean?
Ladies and gentlemen, Robert De Niro not having the effect that he thought he would have yesterday. The memes are spectacular. Of De Niro, the screaming lib meme actually might, this works just perfectly right here. Somebody who would probably cause an enormous amount of tears from Robert De Niro and from everybody who's pantomiming for Joe Biden out front of the court is Mike Davis. Mike Davis is somebody who has been right on this issue and sharp on these legal matters since the get, and he joins the program now. Hey, Mike. So did Robert De Niro convince you yesterday that Donald Trump's guilty? We don't have any audio from Mike. Mike, I'm sorry.
I think, are we back, Ben? Sorry about that, Ben. You would think I'd be a pro by now, but I would just say, I just like it when these little midgets like Robert De Niro and Jay Bratt from the Biden Justice Department go out there and whine about President Trump. It really convinces me. It really convinces me that this obvious Biden Democrat lawfare and election interference, these Republican tactics by these Biden Democrats, it really brings me back from that view of all of this. I mean, it's just complete nonsense. We just learned today that this biased Democrat Manhattan judge Juan Merchan, who got reprimanded by the judicial system, we learned months ago for his illegal campaign contribution to President Trump, whose adult daughter Lauren Merchan is raising millions of dollars off of Judge Juan Merchan, her father's unprecedented criminal trial of a former and likely future president requiring his recusal. We just learned that this biased, partisan, corrupt judge just instructed the jury that they do not even have to unanimously agree what that so-called second crime is that would take a misdemeanor and transform it into a felony under New York statute. So 4 people can say that, I think it was a federal campaign finance violation. 4 people could say, no, I think it's a state campaign finance violation. And 4 other people could say, I think it was something else. And this judge is saying that if they do that, they could still find President Trump guilty of this non-crime, turn those into felonies, and Trump could go to prison over this.
So that's what he means by the 444. I thought it was a Babylon Bee headline, because the Babylon Bee says the judge tells jury they don't have to believe Trump's guilty to find him guilty. And here we have the judge actually doing that in real life. Is this normal legal precedent? This is blowing my mind.
No, it's clearly illegal. It's clearly unconstitutional. Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio just sent a very good criminal referral to the Justice Department, which should be waiting there when the Trump 47 Justice Department gets there on January 20th, 2025. This is a criminal conspiracy by this corrupt, partisan judge who has rigged this process. Judge Juan Merchan, whose adult daughter Lauren Merchan is raising millions of dollars off this case, requiring his recusal. He didn't recuse. Instead, what did he do? He retaliated against Trump with an illegal, unconstitutional gag order against Trump and threatened to throw him in prison if President Trump, as a criminal defendant, merely mentioned the fact that Matthew Colangelo got deployed from the Biden Justice Department to Soros-funded Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's office to bring these bogus charges against Trump from 7 years ago that the prior Manhattan DA, Cy Vance, a Democrat, the prior Manhattan U.S. Attorney, the Federal Election Commission, and Alvin Bragg himself, who campaigned on getting Trump, he didn't think this case was good enough, even though he campaigned on getting Trump. And so Colangelo went to this office to bring these bogus charges. Trump would go to jail if he mentions the fact that this corrupt Judge Juan Merchan's adult daughter Lauren's fundraising office case. Trump would go to jail if he responds to either Stormy Daniels or Michael Cohen, these two people who have changed their story too many times to count, who are making money trashing Trump and peddling their porn sites online right now, but Trump can't respond. Michael Cohen, a convicted serial perjurer, a felon. He admitted that he embezzled. They both admit that they hated Trump. They both admitted they had a bias, but they can't respond.
So,
is this Trump talking now, or what do we have here?
No. This is Donald Trump just spoke a moment ago and saying the exact same thing. And there are some reporting from inside of the courthouse that the jury may well acquit Donald Trump, and that they've lost the jury. This is why they needed to have like a 5-6 hour closing argument. Is that a good sign when you have to close the argument for 5 and 6 hours?
Let me tell you this. I don't think there's any chance there's going to be an acquittal here, even though there should be an acquittal, because not only have they not explained to President Trump what the legal allegations are against him, they didn't even explain until the end of the trial that the jurors can pick one of 3 legal allegations, right? That they didn't explain the legal allegations, so Trump couldn't defend himself. They didn't have evidence, even if those allegations were made. They don't have evidence that Trump did any of the things that they allege that he did. And oh, by the way, it's not a crime for any of this. It's not a crime for a businessman to settle a nuisance claim and put it in his books as a legal expense. That is routine. I don't know what you would call it other than a legal expense. And to put this as a legal expense in his private books in 2017, and that's somehow a business bookkeeping violation in his private books, and somehow putting this as private books in 2017 affected the 2016 election. And oh, by the way, it's now apparently a crime to, quote, scheme to interfere in an election if you're a candidate. What do you think candidates do when they're running for office? They're scheming to interfere in an election so they can win. These are not crimes. And Jay Bratt, or excuse me, I got the wrong Biden goon mixed up, with Matthew Colangelo and Alvin Bragg and Democrats, Judge Juan Merchan, they know these are not crimes. Their sole goal here is to have President Trump railroaded and convicted with this corrupt, rigged partisan process so they can say he's a felon before November 5th, 2024. And they know this is going to get reversed on appeal, but they don't care.
So it does make you wonder how much of the backfire do they feel right now? Because this trial started in April, and Donald Trump has only fortified his positions in the polls. It has only made him more popular. All polling indicates that this isn't going to change anybody's opinion of Donald Trump and may actually help reinforce his support in certain communities. So you're saying that there's 0% chance of acquittal. What are we looking at, a hung jury?
Well, I don't even look. This process is so rigged. Remember, you have this jury pool that in Manhattan that voted 87% for Joe Biden, and then Judge Merchan and Alvin Bragg and Matthew Colangelo further rigged the jury selection process by bouncing potential jurors who follow Trump on social media, but keeping potential jurors who follow Biden. So what, the 4 people in Manhattan who follow Trump on Truth got bounced from this jury pool, and it's getting stacked with all these Biden supporters in an overwhelmingly Biden district of Manhattan. And then they say, oh, wait, there are 2 attorneys on this jury, so they're going to be fair. Do you understand, if you're a lawyer at a law firm in Manhattan, you're not a Trump supporter. They would not hire you. And if they found out you were a Trump supporter, especially after the 2020 election, you'll get chased out of those law firms. This is a rigged process and then you have the jury instructions where this judge, not only did this judge have an unconstitutional trial where he allowed these witnesses like Stormy Daniels to trash Trump with wholly irrelevant and unfairly prejudicial testimony, then you have this judge shutting down Trump's defense at every possible turn and then given these jury instructions to this rigged jury that's obviously going to grease the skids to a conviction. And frankly, that's what Judge Merchan has to do here. Otherwise, his daughter, Lauren Merchan, a leading Democrats campaign consultant and fundraiser who's raising millions off of her father's trial, guess what? If Judge Merchan does not deliver for the Biden Democrats, Lauren Merchan gets thrown overboard by the Biden Democrats, and he knows that.
So what happens? Trump wins the election. There is a J.D. Vance criminal conspiracy sitting at the DOJ right now. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, so J.D. Vance sent a letter, and this is what we've been talking about for many months at the Article 3 project. So I commend Senator J.D. Vance for actually sending this criminal referral. I also commend Elise Stefanik in the House, who just did a judicial misconduct complaint because this Judge Juan Merchan is the Forrest Gump of this Trump lawfare. He keeps just showing up on all these cases when it's supposed to be random. Judge Merchan showed up on the Trump organization criminal case where they threw Trump's CFO in Rikers Island. That was Judge Merchan. Judge Merchan's on this unprecedented trial of President Trump for this non-crime of settling a nuisance claim, and President Trump is on Steve Bannon's case. So, it's supposed to be random. In Manhattan, I think it's like a 1 in 15,000 shot that Judge Merchan just happens to be on all three of these Trump-related cases, and his daughter's raising millions of dollars. It's just merely a coincidence. So cheers to Elise Stefanik for filing a judicial misconduct complaint so they can get to the bottom of that corruption. And cheers to Senator J.D. Vance for filing a criminal referral with the Justice Department, alleging that this is a criminal civil rights felonies, what they're doing with Judge Merchan with these illegal gag orders, with rigging this criminal trial to railroad President Trump. This is a conspiracy against rights, and these are very serious federal civil rights violations under 18 U.S.C. 241 and 242, up to 10 years in prison. And when the Trump 47 Justice Department is back in office on January 20th, 2025, that should be one of the first orders of business.
So the Attorney General of Missouri up on X saying that he's tried a lot of jury trials. The instructions are absolute insanity here. How are 12 jurors supposed to remember all the elements necessary for each of the 34 felony counts? This is an illicit witch hunt prosecution. I'm not sure if you followed any of these jury instructions, but they seem completely insane to me. Again, I can't figure out how 4 people could find him guilty on one thing, 4 people can find him guilty on another. But that's not all of it. Turley's been from inside of the courthouse elucidating what this judge is saying. Can you sort of like game theory for us, like how the jury instructions are trying to rig the trial as well?
It's so rigged because not only do you have partisan prosecutors and partisan and corrupt judge and a rigged jury selection process, you now have rigged jury instructions that are unconstitutional and illegal. For example, you don't have to have the jury unanimously agree on all the essential elements of the crime, including the second crime. It's just kind of a piñata. You just hit the piñata, and whatever falls out, 4 jurors can grab that candy, and 4 jurors can grab that candy, and 4 jurors can grab that candy. And as long as they just say that Trump is bad in some way, all 12 of them say Trump is bad in some way, then, find him guilty of these 34 felonies and throw him in prison for the rest of his life. And Lauren Merchan can keep raising her millions of dollars, and Judge Merchan can be lauded by the left for being this corrupt judge who delivered this injustice and tried to deliver the election for Joe Biden, because Joe Biden knows that President Trump is beating him like a drum on November 5th, 2024. And so President Biden looked at old polling from like a year and a half ago that said if you call Trump a convicted felon, he can't win the election. Well, guess what, Joe Biden? That polling has changed, thanks in big part to the Article 3 project, after we've done over 3,500 media hits over the last nearly 2 years, constant social media, constant opinion pieces. And guess what? We've turned lemons into lemonade. We've changed public perception of this. These are not seen as legitimate prosecutions. They are seen as Biden Democrat lawfare and election interference. And so right now, Trump is winning by like 2 points. If they convict him in New York, he'll win by probably 4 points. And if they throw him in prison, he's going to win by 5 or more points. They're going to turn Trump into Nelson Mandela.
Really quickly here, and we're going to put up the Article 3 project. Everybody needs to go and support the Article 3 project, something that Mike founded and is, without question, the biggest brawlers when it comes to fighting for the rule of law in this country. Just really quick, given your experience with Donald Trump and given what may happen in a second term, if this conspiracy against rights lands on your desk, or if you're able to advise the DOJ against Juan Merchan and against Colangelo, the guy who took the demotion in order to go into Alvin Bragg's office and force this case, how would you go about that prosecution? How would you go about that investigation, Mike?
I would say this is an obvious criminal conspiracy against President Trump's constitutional rights, along with so many others like his top aides like Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon, his attorneys like Jeff Clark and John Eastman, his supporters on January 6th, and it's at many levels. It's at the federal level with Jack Smith and Jay Bratt with their bogus cases for President Trump having his presidential records in the office of former president, which is allowed under the Presidential Records Act. The 2 January 6th cases by Jack Smith and Big Fannie Willis down in Fulton County, Georgia, with her dumb, unqualified boyfriend, Nathan Wade. You have Tish James in New York with her civil fraud. You have this Bragg and Colangelo case in New York City right now. You have Chris Mays out in Arizona, who brought another January 6th criminal case and named Trump as an unindicted co-conspirator. She's going to name him. She's going to indict him eventually. He's unindicted right now. I think she's going to indict him. This is a criminal conspiracy driven by President Biden, his deputy White House counsel, Jonathan Sue, Matthew Colangelo from the Biden Justice Department, and Nathan Wade with his 2 meetings with the Biden White House, including the Biden White House counsel before their indictments. This is a criminal conspiracy. And guess what? After January 20th, 2025, you're going to see Biden Democrats in cages.
You know, Mike, sometimes I wonder, like, do you go to bed at night and just think, what do I want Media Matters to write about me tomorrow? And you just kind of like put it down on a sticky note and put it above your head?
Yes, exactly. So didn't Media Matters just get like half of those whack jobs got fired, and so they're going to have to like go work at Starbucks? I'm not sure what's happening with Media Matters right now.
Underqualified, I think, to work at Starbucks. Mike is overqualified to be the Attorney General. Could never get Senate confirmed, but might have a 2-week reign of terror. If you wish to support Mike's 2-week reign of terror, go to the Article 3 Project. Here's their website. Follow Mike on X. Hundreds of thousands of Americans can't be wrong. America is facing republic-ending lawfare. The Article 3 Project can save this country. Ladies and gentlemen, go support Mike. Godspeed, Mike.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have some really remarkable reporting out of the court right now. The juries are in deliberations. However, there are some pretty unbelievable takeaways from what was the closing arguments, the marathon closing arguments, and then the judge's orders. Jonathan Turley is somebody who's been inside of the courthouse and has been talking about how outrageous these closing arguments were, and also how wild it was that the judge is allowing for such a biased trial and such biased orders to go to the jury. Jonathan Turley, one of our favorite legal experts, very clear-eyed, very clear-minded. I don't think certainly not America First, like red MAGA hat supporting guy, like just somebody who like approaches this with a professorial eye, but he's inside the courthouse, and we thought that you should hear exactly how rigged this truly is.
What I saw in that courtroom was really otherworldly, and you know, I've really attempted to give the judge the benefit of doubt on many occasions, but what I saw today was frankly outrageous. At one point, the prosecutor actually said that Michael Cohen committed federal election violations upon the orders of Donald Trump. Now, Mershon has given an instruction that the jury is not supposed to attribute Cohen's plea deal as an issue of guilt towards Trump. So the defense objected, and Mershon just overruled it and allowed the prosecutor to repeatedly state that federal election violations by Trump are a fact and that there's not any dispute to that. And Mershon just sat there. He was as useful as a ficus plant in that courtroom. I kept on waiting, looking at him for some sign that he was even listening to some of these arguments. And at one point, the prosecutor said that Hope Hicks burst into tears because she knew that she had destroyed any defense by Donald Trump. Really? How do you know that? At another point, the prosecutor basically started to testify and said that to catch and kill techniques are just not used in the media or politics, that this is beyond anything that the media or political groups have ever done.
So how exactly are you going to allow the prosecution to make closing arguments like that? Like, how rigged is all of this? Now, again, we're doing our best to not try and pump the audience full of hopium and copium, but it's important to note that from inside of the courthouse, there seems to have been like a total and complete exhaustion from the jury based on orders and instructions like that, and the rigging against Donald Trump may have a backfire. It may well backfire. Alina Habba, one of our absolute favorite guests, who is currently in the courthouse with Donald Trump right now, saying effectively that the closing arguments demonstrated that there is no crime. They were still unable to name the crime. I think that is now the system, right? That's the feature, not the bug here. The murkiness and the cloudiness of what exactly Donald Trump did is being used to confuse the jury. Yet the jury has to understand beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump is guilty. Somebody has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he's guilty of crimes he hasn't been charged with. Alina Habba, ladies and gentlemen.
They took 4 hours to tell their story. I actually had to leave. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was insane.
Probably need a bathroom break. It's a very, very long closer.
Yeah, but
what was the point? Did they have a crime at the end of this?
No.
No, still they haven't named the crime.
They could not give us any evidence. It was a lot of noise, and that's what we keep seeing, Jesse. There was not one bit of evidence that showed that Donald Trump had an intent to commit any crime. And I'm still, as I sit here as an attorney, trying to understand how they could have possibly brought this at this point, wasted this much taxpayer dollars, past the statute of limitations, and then had the audacity to make a jury sit there until 8 o'clock with a bunch of nonsense and shiny balls, as she just said, because that's all they've got. They've got no facts.
They've got nothing. And they weren't able to elucidate a crime. Hopefully you'll never see anything like this ever again. This moment, it's important to like grab the energy of this moment, like run with it. It's certainly something that we've devoted this channel to, and to really like dig down and to say like, what are we living through right now? Is this the country that you want to live in? We're like the leading presidential candidate, not just beating Joe Biden, but like odds are deeply favored. Donald Trump will become the president of the United States. Republicans will keep the House, will gain in the Senate. You're going to be able to just prosecute that guy for nothing. You don't even have to show a crime. There's a famous Stalinist judicial system quote: "Show me the man, I'll show you the crime." Right? Levante Berra, Soviet Union. This is Stalin's special prosecutor. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. I'll just put anyone in jail for anything. This is Stalinist. What they're doing. It's not lawfare. I don't really like the term lawfare because it goes beyond that. This is effectively just saying we don't like Donald Trump, so we're simply going to prosecute him. Now, Vivek, who is somebody who would presumably be serving in a Trump administration, might get the nod for vice president. There's conflicting reports on that. Was up yesterday saying it really doesn't matter what they choose here because no matter both choices are very, very bad for Joe Biden, who has Joe Biden has an address from the White House planned after the jury rules here. What does that tell you? Here's Vivek.
I think either outcome is going to favor President Trump, and here's why. Once that outcome is behind us, people will see in the not guilty case, what are they going to see? This was a sham trial. This is a trial where Alvin Bragg made a commitment to voters saying that he was going to go after Donald Trump. You name the man, I'll show you the crime. That was his mentality. That's exactly what he did. In the case where he's convicted, nobody in the United States of America could still possibly tell you what exactly was the crime that Donald Trump committed. And if he's being sentenced on that basis, they will see the injustice of that as well. So this has backfired as it should. And thankfully, we will be able to end the weaponization of justice when Trump wins that next term.
So either way, Donald Trump is going to win out of this jury and out of this case. This is what Vivek is asking. And this is what Vivek is predicting. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a member of Congress, really, really sharp ally of Donald Trump, one of the original allies of Donald Trump in Congress, the great Corey Mills from Florida, joining us now to talk about the insanity of this ongoing trial and these jury instructions, which may well return while we are live today. Let's see. As they deliberate, let's talk with Corey Mills. Congressman, how is it possible that you can get 4 jurors to decide one thing, 4 jurors to decide another crime, and 4 jurors to decide another crime? That one seems flatly illegal. Also, people are saying that it's against a ruling of the Supreme Court, so it's unconstitutional.
Well, that's right. Look, you've had some amazing guests on. Mike is a phenomenal guest to be able to talk about the kind of legal process and how that's been violated. But, to your point, it's not just like this Stalin-esque type of ruling. It's also this caligula, lawfare that is continuing to go on. And they're exactly right. Jeff Clark, Jonathan Turley, and many others have actually cited the Ramos v. Louisiana Supreme Court trial that actually talks about due process, and it talks about a understanding of fair notice. This judge, and they always used to talk about the ideas that a judge always places its thumbs on the scale of justice. This judge has thrown the scale of justice. He is utilizing this for political prosecution. He is utilizing this as the Biden league. He is utilizing this to pump up his daughter's own fundraising, and all in an effort to try and go ahead and slander, defame, and bring down President Trump. This is election interference. However, to your point and many others, this has backfired, and Vivek is exactly right. No matter the outcome of this kangaroo court, this third country banana republic lawfare, this is not going to hurt President Trump. He will go on to win the presidential election, and we will see him come in and clean up the Department of Injustice with the help of Congress, and we will stand together to ensure that this does not continue to happen to the American people ever again.
So the Constitution is something that's upheld by the Supreme Court, but is enforced by Congress, your branch of government. And I'm looking here at a number of rulings that in our production chat that say from the Supreme Court, you're not allowed to do this. Unanimity is something that you have to have
exactly right.
for guilty verdicts. So how
that's exactly
pardon
right.
my French, but how the hell is this man allowed to do this? It seems like he's the criminal.
Well, Benny, you actually said it earlier. The actual job of the prosecutor is to provide all the prosecutorial evidence in an effort to try and ensure that the juror of your peers, which we know this is not with regards to President Trump, has a way to actually do it and determine something in a unanimous way that actually does prove without a reasonable doubt, and that was the term she used, which is correct earlier. And when you break up that unanimity, when you modify the rules at the very end to basically say, well, and this is what Judge Merchan was looking at. He said, This 4.5, 5 hour closing argument, which wasn't much of a closing argument that could even provide criminal case, was so weak. I'm going to now change the rules. And hey, jury, don't worry about unanimity anymore. Don't worry about due process. Don't worry about fair notice. Go ahead, and if 4 of you can determine that there is some crime, just present it to me, and I'm going to go ahead and rule in favor of it. That's what this judge is doing. And there is a 100 different areas that not only should he have recused himself, but that there should be levels of appeal. Again, Alina Habba, who is the Trump legal spokesperson, who's phenomenal, she has made it very clear as well that this was even outside the statutes of limitation to even be brought. It was a misdemeanor that they claimed was a falsification of entries into a business general ledger, something that every one of us as business owners, if you have an individual, if anything, I would argue that the two key witnesses, one who has no overall moral ground and one who has no integrity, that being Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen, if anything, they have proven that they have been violating the law. They have proven that they have no credibility within this courtroom. And so Judge Merchan, the prosecutors, the star witnesses, and the entire process is an absolute witch hunt sham that we as Americans should be ashamed of, considering we consider ourselves the rule of law as a constitutional republic.
We have this photo up of you inside of the court. There's been a lot of people showing up to stand beside Trump, but you're one of a rarefied few that were actually in court with Donald Trump. Can you explain what the vibe is like inside of this courthouse?
Well, it's a very, the president refers to it as the ice box, but it's a very kind of dark, dank area where you can see immediately. This is the benefits of going into these trials and seeing it for yourself, however, because when you're looking at it on a Fox News or on a Newsmax or on a CNN or on an MSNBC, they have a tendency to pan away for legal analysis. And what you miss is those various nuances of being able to study the jurors' reactions whenever you see Michael Cohen evading questions, or seeing the jurors' reaction whenever the immediate prosecution offers up an objection that's immediately accepted by the judge, but when the defense does it, he immediately goes ahead and denies. You're seeing this before they can even get it out of their mouths. And a couple of the jurors, I believe, looked at this and said, well, wait a second. This is very much seeming as if the prosecutor and the judge, which, by the way, the judge shouldn't even be sitting behind the bench any longer. He should just go sit next to the prosecutor because that's what side he's on. And he's made it very clear in that. But I think that it was very evident that when you're sitting in there, they put the president in this back room that is way outside of what a president should be put into. This kind of, run down, in need of refurbishment, kind of back room, which looks like it's an area that you would put a real criminal, not the president of the United States. And they do this, and then they try to bring him and allow him to not only be able to not talk at the gag order, but they put plants inside of the media who tries to yell things out to see if they can get a reaction in an effort to try and invoke his, violation of the gag order and keep us back far enough to where it appears by certain media outlets that he's standing alone. Well, I hate to upset people, but Americans are standing with the president. I stand with the president, and I will not allow this to be exactly what he said, which is that they're not coming after him. They're coming after us. Doing that right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the small technical error there. My apologies, Congressman. You were off air for just a moment. Considering the fact that this trial is so unbearably rigged against Donald Trump, do you have any hope for a not guilty verdict?
Well, I think that he absolutely should be not guilty and fully acquitted. No crime was proven. No crime was provided. No circumstantial evidence that would have given a reasonable shadow of a doubt has been given to the juror. That's why they're modifying the rules. I think a hung jury is very likely. But again, I'm going to go off of not even my own, kind of perception of what I saw, but I'll go off of what Michael Cohen said. Michael Cohen, during his testimony and cross-examination, even said that the South District New York Court was completely corrupt and rigged. Now, this is from a guy who's trying to rely upon a Manhattan courtroom to not be corrupt and rigged. So I think that no matter what the verdict, no matter what the outcome, appeal is obviously there. An escalation of taking this to a higher court is there. But there's undoubtedly going to happen, that he should be acquitted and he will be the next president of the United States.
You saw the jury. We don't really know what they look like or who they are. Obviously, that's the way the jury system works. I'm not trying to dox anybody, but can you please explain what the responses were to the jury as you were watching them? Few have seen inside this courthouse, but few have really eyed up the jury. And the reason I'm asking that is because we have reporting from inside of the court that this jury just isn't buying it. Something that's been said often is that this jury is just wincing and putting their head in their hands and breathing heavy and just what is this trash? And that the jury just doesn't seem convinced. It seems to be the perpetual drumbeat of reporting from people inside the court and then from reporters inside the court as well. Do you think that the jury might have been lost?
Well, I'll be honest, for a court system that is actually rigging the jury to be in favor of the prosecution and not the defendant, I watched during cross-examination when Todd Blanche did a phenomenal job of literally highlighting the violations that Michael Cohen had presented with regards to IRS tax evasion, with regards to perjury before Congress and the federal laws that he had violated, as well as for his own admission to laws that he had violated and fraud against the Trump organization. And you watched as he tried to evade questions about 2021 that he had no recollection of, but full recollection of everything in 2016, the text messages, the emails, everything the prosecution was asking, he knew the exact details of. And I watched a couple of the jurors, to be honest, because it's like playing poker. You don't watch the cards, you watch the player. And I watched a couple of the jurors, and you could see them kind of tilt their head a couple times, grab their face in a type manner. And I think that the fact that they weren't able to present without a shadow of a doubt, without reasonable doubt, any crime that's been committed is why Judge Merchan is trying his absolute best to rig this even further with this violation of notice for the unanimity clause. And so I think that they did lose some of the jury. I think that that's why we will look at if it was a unanimous decision, a hung jury or an acquittal, which is why they're changing this to now, please find 4 of you, because they know there's at least 4 who really dislike President Trump. Please, 4 of you, find a crime that I can actually rule on, because they don't want this to be what it actually is. It's a sham indictment.
So it does seem to be really not just sham indictment. The mask is off, and now the Biden campaign's doing campaign events outside of the courthouse. Joe Biden's apparently going to do some little address to the nation from the Oval Office after this. There should be some consequences for this.
By the way, I'm curious, and I'd like to also look into the fact, if you're utilizing your official capacity to go after your political opponent in the actual White House itself, does that not violate the Hatch Act? Are you not in some way actually campaigning in an official way? So, it's funny. We can't, as members of Congress, conduct anything that has to do with political or campaigning within our offices, but he can conduct this in the White House to talk about his political opponent. It's just funny to me how they continue to play this good for thee, not for me. And this isn't even the Trump trial. This is the Biden trial. This is the election interference that is continuing to go on, where they're utilizing lawfare, whether it be Letitia James, whether it be Alvin Bragg, whether it be Fani Willis, whether it be what's happening in Arizona, where they're actually going after Tyler Bauer, the head of the Turning Point Action, and seeing where this goes all the way back to the 2004 weaponization of our IRS by Obama, when he utilized the IRS to go after conservative organizations. This is just continuing to cascade forward in a much obvious and overt manner. But I can tell you that whenever you have Joe Biden with his hands on the Department of Justice, you can guarantee it's going to be weaponized and utilized against the American people.
Do you think that there should be some, do you think that Congress should act and say, listen, if you're a judge and if your kids are involved in political fundraising and if you're donating to candidates, then you should have forced recusal from a federal level, that we're not going to allow judges who can benefit financially from these kind of prosecutors, because that's going to hit
or DAs or AGs when they run on the actual, when they run on prosecuting a president. How can you say that it's impartial? How can you say that it's not partisan based? I mean, this is why I had submitted legislation called the Against Federal Funds for Inappropriate Relationships Act, known as the Affairs Act, for Fani Willis. This is why we wrote to the actual AG, the DA, the Attorney General of the United States, Governor Kemp, others, highlighting the unethical procedures and process and the kind of unethical behaviors of one of the DAs. And I think that it should be the same thing when it comes to these justices, because they're supposed to uphold justice, not put their hands on the scale of justice to sway it in a way that's politically beneficial to, President Biden or to any individual for that matter. So yeah, I actually agree with you that we need to look into not violation of any type of separation of power, but holding the justice system accountable for this type of inappropriate, unethical, and illegal manner.
So, in conclusion here, being such a strong ally of Trump, spending time with him at his apartment in Trump Tower while you were there in New York, seeing him behind the scenes, and presumably speaking with him, offline during all of this, sort of give us like an outlay, a vision through the next 5 months to the general.
Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, what we talked about a lot was how we would roll out individual rallies, where we would look at the key states. My biggest thing was, and I had talked to the RNC chair about this as well, who actually is in the midst of hiring over 1,000 lawyers, is that we need to do something very similar. And this was my recommendation, is that in 2018, when you watched Rick Scott and Governor DeSantis nearly lose the election as a result of Miami-Dade and the shuttling in of illegal ballots by Brenda Snipes, in my opinion, what you actually saw was a filing for an injunction, which actually allowed nothing else to go in and out of this area. I think that we need to look at the 5 states, 19 different counties, to file injunctions right after the ballot closing so that we can ensure nothing in, nothing out, and more observance of the actual election process. But we also, as a federal government, have to do more like raising Brian Steele's ACE Act, which actually looks at helping to impose a stronger election integrity law. We have to look at what we just did with passing a law that makes sure that the census surveys that go out ask the question on whether or not you are an American or not, so that you can't redraw district lines based on the 9.8 million people who's come in illegally. So there's a lot that we discussed with regards to election integrity. There's a lot that we discussed with regards to the upcoming elections, not to repeat 2020. And I think that we have to really take lessons of this and look at the fact that because he's so far ahead in the polls, you're now seeing, and this is why I've dropped the impeachment of articles against President Biden, is because of these very things. One, the abuse of power, which was the quid pro quo that he's done with regards to withholding Israel to try and buy 13.2% of uncommitted voters in Michigan, as well as for those rallying around at these protests and universities. 2, the violation of separations of power, when he's still doing the tuition bailout, violating the Article 1 kind of circumvention that the Supreme Court has already ruled on. And 3, which is the take care clause, where he has not upheld his oath in order to enforce federal law on our borders to ensure we secure the border. So I looked at talking to the president about, the various things we're trying to do in Congress to guarantee a more perfect and a better union and republic. And so we're looking ahead, and I think that he's got a great plan. He's got an amazing team. Susie Wiles is absolutely a powerhouse in politics. Lasavita, Miller, you've got so many people around him that's amazing. But lawfare is something that we need to look at. Like you said, this Stalin-esque, Caligula, weaponized lawfare is something that every American, this isn't a Democrat-Republican issue. It doesn't matter whether you voted for Trump or Biden. This is an American issue. Our Constitution is based on rule of law. We must ensure that you are innocent until proven guilty without a shadow of a doubt, not guilty until proven innocent.
So, in closing here, Congressman, Cook Political Report this morning says that Republicans are now favored to keep the House, and that Republicans are favored to take the Senate, and that Donald Trump is favored to become president by the widest margin in their polling. And this is the first time that you've seen this unified government for Republicans tick over on the Cook Political Report, which it does have a left-wing bias, so it's it's got to be pretty alarming for the other side. And perhaps you could elucidate for us how we won't just get more of the same, because many in our audience will say, well, the last time we handed Republicans House, Senate, and Donald Trump, we couldn't even get a border wall.
Well, they're not wrong. And I would tell you that What I said in 2010, which is the same thing I say now, is that it's not anything that's been done brilliantly by the Republican Party. It's mostly the devastation that they see with regards to the Democrats. They've now had a complete contrast to see 4 years under President Trump, 4 years under Joe Biden, 4 years under Democrat control, 4 years under Republican control, and they can understand who actually handles things better when it comes to the economy and other key issues. Look, the Gallup poll that recently came up showed that 41% of Americans said that the most important issue in their life is the economy and inflation. Now, that's a really big number, and I want to tell you the reason why. If you go all the way back to 2008, during the housing crash, during the real big bubble, only 18% of Americans said economy and inflation was their top issue. And so when you look at the polls and you look at who handles economy better, who's more fiscally responsible, who understands that border security matters, who understands how to defend our law enforcement, not defund our law enforcement to ensure that we get down the criminality that's existing, I think that it's without a doubt leans in the favor of conservatives. And so I don't personally think that we had done enough in the House. That's just my own personal opinion. I think the H.R. 1 Low Cost Energy Act should have been pushed to the Senate. In addition to some of the foreign policy stuff that we've done should have been a lot stronger to put America first. I think that we should have actually secured our border and forced the president, who's in the White House right now sniffing children eating ice cream, to impose executive order unilateral authority of 212 Section F, which he could do like this and shut our border immediately. But the reality is this: we, in my opinion, have not done enough to get accountability. Responsible and accountable are two very different things. People coming in and giving the mea culpa, I'm sorry, it's on me, is not accountability. And that's why I'm tired of hearing, as the rest of the American people are, one more hearing, one more piece of evidence. We're almost there. It's been 4 years. I've been in office for almost 2. And if we can't get the same type of evidence, the same type of trials that President Trump had to face when he was in office for Joe Biden, for Secretary Mayorkas, for Secretary Austin, for Secretary of State Blinken, then we're not doing our job to get accountability, because there's more than enough wrongful things that are unconstitutional has been conducted, and we haven't done enough to get it forward. But I can tell you, under President Trump, it will be a different America. It will be the America that we know, love, and that upholds our constitutional oaths, that ensures that he actually keeps the Republican Party in line and that pushes America first. And that's what we need right now more than ever.
Yeah, well, from your mouth to God's ears, I really hope, Congressman, that Republicans do keep the House and take the Senate.
I do believe we will. And we're going to keep fighting hard. And I'll be in South Texas here in a couple of days to help fight for Mayra Flores and other candidates who we need back in the House to flip seats. It's important for us to not concern ourselves as elected officials with just winning our re-elections, but fighting for the republic, fighting for the American people, growing the majority, and doing what is right even when it's an unpopular decision. And so we have to keep fighting and forging and forging ahead. And I think that's a really big thing and what I've tried to do throughout my entire term.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have to follow the great congressman from Florida. He's one of the good guys. There's a lot of bad guys in Congress on both sides.
There is.
Actually. But you got to follow Corey Mills. Obviously 132,000 patriots can't be wrong. And he's just serving his first term. Imagine what this guy will get when he's able to rock and roll with a little extra seniority. So make sure that he has the power of this program and the force of the Salty Army and the America First movement at his back. The great Corey Mills from Florida. Godspeed.
Penny, thanks so much. God bless.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we are watching in slow motion sort of the fix in on Donald Trump. We're not saying that it's the easiest thing to do is to be a doomer, right? Be like, it's all rigged, nothing will ever happen. I have faith in the American people. I do. I have faith in my fellow Americans. You saw it in the Bronx this past weekend. You saw it. Same as, ladies and gentlemen, this last weekend, Donald Trump had 25,000 people in the Bronx show up for him. We've played you the side-by-sides. AOC, who's the representative from the Bronx, she can't fill a pop stand, like a lemonade stand line. She's speaking to empty auditoriums. I thought she was famous. I thought she had millions of followers. This is real. And this is the population of people that were selected for this jury pool. And so if 25,000 people can show up for Donald Trump in the Bronx for a rally and wait for 2 straight days, then perhaps, ladies and gentlemen, we'll get a not guilty verdict. The jury is deliberating right now. We shall see. But on this 444 issue, this seems to be the breaking news of the moment. The idea that the jurors only have to agree, 4 jurors only have to agree on one crime and 4 jurors have to agree on another crime. Not only does it seem unconstitutional, it's utterly gobsmacking for the legal experts outside of the court. We are in a breaking news environment, so we'll bring you the news as it breaks. We already brought you Donald Trump speaking live from the court. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Andy McCarthy, who's at the court as well. Fox News has all of their legal experts who are in the courthouse today. Andy McCarthy talking about what does this mean, this 444. This seems to be the way that they, like, the final little dagger in the side to try and, like, fix or rig this thing. McCarthy, take it away.
Well, let me ask you about the 3 choices. And one thing in particular that this judge said that these jurors could do. He just delivered what is being called really the pinnacle of all of this. He said that there is no need to agree on what has occurred. They can disagree on what the crime was among the 3 choices. Thus, this means that they could split 4-4-4 and the judge would still treat them unanimously. What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, it's really outrageous because in a normal criminal case, every statutory crime has what we call elements of the offense. Like in a bank robbery case, it's, you have to rob, it's got to be a financial institution, you have to show intent. Those are the things the jury has to agree on unanimously that they were proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Here, what we're doing is taking the element that actually makes this a felony, because remember, falsification of records is normally a misdemeanor in New York. What makes it a felony is that you're concealing or committing another crime. And here the judge is telling them they don't have to agree about what the other crime is under circumstances where that not only is what makes this a felony, what makes it a 4-year potential prison penalty rather than a year or less, but it's also what gets us into the courtroom, because if this had been a misdemeanor, the time to bring this case would have lapsed in 2019. So the only reason they're still able to bring this case is because it's a felony, allegedly, and yet now the judge is saying, you don't have to agree on what the felony is.
So these are some of the more clear-eyed professional legal experts who are saying this is absurd. But Benny, you're playing Fox News. Doesn't matter that Andy McCarthy is a Trump hater, and that he's just basically a legal scholar that worked at the DOJ. Like, you're playing Fox News, so they're going to be biased. Okay, fine. Let's play CNN, ladies and gentlemen. CNN on the jury instructions. This clip is wild. The jury must be overwhelmed to have all these instructions read to them without getting a copy. The lawyers don't even get a copy of the jury instructions. CNN saying this thing is totally bizarre. This is as rigged as a $3 bill. Here we go.
The jury must be overwhelmed. I mean, to have all of these instructions just read to them without them getting a copy is going to be overwhelming for them. And also, it's crazy that the lawyers were not able to discuss the instructions in their closings yesterday. Typically, lawyers can go through the instructions and explain why they've met them or why the government hasn't met them, and they weren't able to do that yesterday, which I find bizarre. I think the lawyers should have been able to do that, because the jurors right now must be wondering, what is this all about?
Yeah. So what the hell is this? What is it all about? Just a reminder that CNN, without missing a beat, has up now a shot clock from for the jury deliberation. CNN jury deliberation shot clock now on screen. You can see here they have jury deliberations been in deliberation for 54 minutes, and now CNN is going full COVID counter, right? Like this, so get ready. All right, get ready. Another kind of wild admission from CNN is that there is no direct evidence. This is crazy. CNN legal expert. They're making this very expansive because they don't have any direct evidence that Donald Trump actually committed a crime. What an unbelievable admission from CNN here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go.
Even if he himself did not falsify the business record, as long as they mentioned in the closing argument, if he made or caused the false entry. They're making this very expansive as part of the cast analogy. He doesn't have to be the person to have actually recorded it. That's very important because they don't have the direct evidence that Donald Trump actually recorded that information. You have invoices, you've got ledgers, you've got checks. And so as long as he was a part of it to make or cause it, they could find, if they choose to, beyond a reasonable doubt.
So we have a pretty remarkable last 24 hours of experts jumping on national corporate television and saying there is no case here. They've never seen anything like this, and that the rigging process in this trial is so breathtakingly overt. Well, the Biden campaign has decided to start doing press conferences outside of the trial. That's how overt it is. That Joe Biden will be using the office of the White House to give commentary on the trial of his foremost political opponent. It's backfiring. Played you earlier in the show the polling that shows that it's backfiring. But you have some of the foremost legal experts on earth saying that it's all backfiring. Alan Dershowitz, who is the foremost defense attorney in the country, right? Harvard professor, got O.J. Simpson off. Call that whatever you will. But if you're able to get O.J. Simpson out of jail for that with DNA evidence, then you got to listen to the guy. Dershowitz, who's been on our show, saying effectively that the entire system here has been this entire trial needs to be thrown out. This will be studied for years as a way to rig the system in your favor. Watch.
There are 2 points in Cohen's testimony that are crucial. Number one, the meeting in which he and Weisenberg allegedly concocted this plot. No corroboration for that. And where's Weisenberg? He hasn't been called. And second, the phone call where there was a complaint about some 14-year-old kid harassing Cohen. There is a witness to that. And I hope the judge will give a missing witness instruction. There wasn't enough emphasis on that by the defense, in my view. But the judge should instruct the jury. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the burden is on the prosecution. They must prove that at one or both of those meetings, there was a plot. And there's no corroboration for that. It's all dependent on Cohen's testimony. And there are 2 witnesses that could testify, but the prosecution didn't call them. You should infer from the fact that the prosecution could have immunized the witnesses, could have called them, but didn't, that if they had called them, the testimony would be unfavorable to the prosecution. If the judge fails to give that instruction, it's clearly reversible error, 1 of 10 or 15. I don't think I've ever seen as much reversible error in a case as I've seen here, but they don't care because they want the conviction down and dirty before the election. And then if it's reversed on appeal after the election, nobody cares. And of course, the appeal goes to a New York court as well.
The reversible error, ladies and gentlemen. A legal expert, Viva Fry, will be joining the program here quite soon, and so we're going to talk to him about this. He's always quite entertaining, and to be quite honest with you, Viva is one of our favorite bookings as far as having a real groundwork for what legal basis is actually happening right now. And he's from Canada, so he's seen what happens when courts just go completely Marxist. And that's what this is. And check out these jury instructions. I mean, this is crazy. We've been sort of zeroing in on this. It broke live while we were on air, so we read this instruction live at the beginning of the show. But here it is sort of laid out in black and white. So the judge has instructed the jury they do not need unanimity to convict. Now, apparently this is against a Supreme Court ruling, so this is unconstitutional. But what does this mean? Here from Nick Sotor, who's one of our favorite reporters. 4 jurors could agree on the first crime, falsifying records, 4 on the second crime, tax violations, 4 on the third crime, federal election violations. And Mershon would still count that as a unanimous guilty verdict of a 12-member jury. The fix is in. What kind of country do you live in here, ladies and gentlemen? What kind of a nation are we running where this is allowed? As has been said many times before by pretty wise people, our State Department would authorize regime change or sanctions against other nations that did this to political opponents. Yet here it is, happening in this country. We're not doomers, however. If you're looking for somebody to like frown and sigh and be incredibly sad about what's going on here, it's not us. We know that there is always hope, and that is the American story. Being an American at its core is seeing possibility, hope, optimism, even in against insurmountable odds. Whether it be our own revolution, whether it be manifest destiny, taming the West, whether it's multiple world wars on different fronts across different oceans. Ladies and gentlemen, Americans have always risen to the task, and it's always been great Americans who stand up and fight and who, well, call out embarrassing midget evil to its face. It is a truism that the most degenerate and angry little men always happen to be like 5 foot or shorter. And midget Robert De Niro yesterday was in front of the court at the behest of the Biden regime. Now, why the Biden regime decided to call on 81-year-old man who was caught up in a international sex sting ring a la Jeffrey Epstein, Robert De Niro. You remember Robert De Niro was arrested in Paris and had to spend 9 hours in police questioning for his involvement or alleged involvement in a giant international sex ring. Did you not hear about that? Oh, interesting. I wonder what leverage they're using on Robert De Niro to embarrass himself in front of the court. But also, Mr. Tough Guy, Mr. Corleone, back in the Godfather days, Robert De Niro, out in front of the court yesterday getting trolled by MAGA. And this will uplift you. If you need a little pep in your step today, you're going to love this. This is Robert De Niro yesterday trying to leave a press conference, getting trolled to his face by MAGA and having a panic attack live on camera. You're going to love this. Check that out.
Let's go. You tough kid! You loser! Stand up! Fuck you! We are gonna fight back! We're trying to do the book! Watch out, we're trying to be gentlemen in this world. You are gangsters! You are gangsters! Step aside, guys. Make a hole. Make a hole. Step aside. You're a little punk! You're a softy! You're a nobody! Step aside. You're trash! Look at my face! You fucking traitor! You fucking loser! We fucking hate you! Let's go! Hey, De Niro's gonna go to jail. That's why he's so worried. When Trump goes to office, he's done. He's finished. His career's already done, and it's gonna be even more done. We're outside. De Niro's a loser. He's a mook. He's a sucker. And that's why he's running away like a punk! Back up. Like a punk! He's a okay! Robert De Niro's a fucking mook! A traitor! He's a traitor to the Americans, the Italians, and the Jews! Why don't you look it up? Google it. Bobby De Niro's the biggest piece of shit in the city. He wants to punch Donald Trump in the face. I challenge Robert De Niro to punch me in the face anywhere, any fucking time. MAGA. Fuck De Niro.
We apologize. We typically bleep the curses New Yorkers are built different, and so we some colorful language there. However, we do agree with the sentiment, which is, why would you bring out Robert De Niro of all people, somebody who is a multi-millionaire, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, have lived inside of a left-wing bubble, is an adult pretender by trade? What an insult to regular Americans who are hurting right now, who have really tough lives. What an insult to trot out somebody like that in his little lifts, in his little shoes. You get me some. There's some photos of Robert De Niro in his lifts. It's really, really something else. You got to see these things. Robert De Niro in his in the little shoes he wears to, effectively get on, to be tall enough to ride the rides at Disneyland. You're gonna love these things. Some of the De Niro memes that popped up yesterday, we didn't get a chance to go through all of them, but still quite important to the culture of the internet, and we always try and do our best to show you memes on this program. And it's nice to troll people like Robert De Niro because, well, he needs to be knocked down a peg. Actually, if you knocked him down more than like an inch, he'd be like 4 foot tall, and the guy would be able to get, a special sticker and stuff, board the planes early and things like that. Here we go. Do we got the De Niro memes? Yeah, okay, let's go. Oh, okay. Well, this is Robert De Niro and his lifts. Oh, this one. This is the good one. This is a good one, Klein. Do we have the memes, Klein? Oh, okay. Yeah. Here we go. These are the lifts. No, do the other ones. Yeah. There you go. No, I don't know. I don't have confirmation if this is what Robert De Niro wore yesterday. It's hard to see from the camera angle if these zoom in. What are those, as they say? This is what tough guy Robert De Niro wears in order to be able to see over the counter at 7-Eleven to buy a pack of gum. Or to be able to buy his 100% soy latte at Starbucks. Really humiliating. Completely humiliating, ladies and gentlemen. The unfortunate humiliation, however, will be resting upon the legal system in New York. Greg Jarrett, one of our favorites on Fox News, somebody with a legal background as well, saying effectively that from the beginning of this trial, the fix was in, but what happened was the Biden campaign decided to then make this a campaign event because Donald Trump was winning in the court of public opinion, and they're now in total and complete panic mode. Greg Jarrett saying that this has not been a free trial. There's been nothing free about any of this. There's been nothing fair about any of this. It was rigged from the beginning, and we need answers.
And Sean, in the history of American law, never has a defendant been tried on an unidentified charge. No ethical prosecutor would ever do it. No fair or competent judge would ever allow it, because every defendant has a right to be informed of the precise accusations against him. It's guaranteed in the Sixth Amendment. But even now, nobody, least of all the jury, knows for sure. And as I say, it's one of the many reversible errors committed by Judge Merchan. I think the fix was in from the outset. This case was rigged by an unscrupulous DA and a biased judge, and together they worked to engineer an absurd legal theory. It would never withstand judicial scrutiny. They know it. But their goal, I think, is to gain a wrongful conviction to delegitimize Trump's candidacy. They contorted the law. They manipulated the justice system to create this illusion of wrongdoing. The end justifies any means. So sadly, it's now up to the jury to correct a manifest injustice, and nobody knows how this will go.
So what will happen with this manifest injustice, as Greg Jarrett says? It's up to the jury to correct it. We'll see. Again, we'll see. We might find out live on the show. We have our entire production team, all of our producers, scouring and scanning all social media to pick up any little tidbits that we could possibly get to bring you, hopefully, what will be a acquittal, a hung jury. If it's a hung jury, then presumably it might be a little longer. We'll see. but you can find ripe grounds for there to be simply an acquittal here. All it takes is one, but I guess all it takes is 4 now. It's so remarkably confusing and an abomination to the system of justice. Here, ladies and gentlemen, is Laura on Michael Cohen being a thief and a liar, because Michael Cohen admitted in this trial, the crime of stealing tens of thousands of dollars from Donald Trump. How would you possibly be able to trust somebody who does such a thing? Well, you can't. It's not possible. Michael Cohen stole all of this money, thus amounting to a worse crime than what they're charging Donald Trump with legally. So how are you able to justify that? How would you be able to call this witness credible? This has been a wild and egregious injustice, and the only criminal that has been proved in trial has been Michael Cohen.
Well, I was there all day with my husband, Eric, Dawn, Tiffany, her husband, Michael. We were there, obviously, to show support for my father-in-law, because it's crazy that we're at this place right now, Sean, and we live in the United States of America. And what I can tell you, after enduring 6 hours of closing arguments from the prosecution alone, is that the only thing this trial actually proved is that Michael Cohen is not only a liar and a perjurer, but also stole tens of thousands of dollars from Donald Trump and his company. Aside from that, they didn't prove anything directly related to Donald Trump. And they claim this is about election interference. Well, it's pretty funny to see the links they'll go to when it involves Donald Trump. What about Hillary Clinton and Michael Sussman and their ploy in 2016 with, falsifying the Steele dossier to start the Russia collusion hoax? What about the 51 former intelligence officials who in 2020 signed documents saying the Hunter Biden laptop was not a real item? And in fact, it was. Think about the influence that had on elections. The truth is, Sean, it is about election interference, this case. This case is supposed to interfere in this election we are in right now.
So what will happen, ladies and gentlemen, if there is a guilty verdict? What happens next? John, you effectively talking about the game theory and what a problem that the courts may face if, in fact, after all of this rigging, they are able to get what they want, which is Donald Trump is a felon. Where do they go from there?
Every time that Judge Merchan has had a really serious choice in this trial, he has sided with DA Alvin Bragg. Maybe that's the case with other judges in New York City these days. But I think the cautious thing to do, especially when we have crossed the Rubicon to allow the first prosecution of an American president in the history of the country, you would want everything to be ship-shape and buttoned up. And instead, this has been a kind of, how would you put it, just sort of the Judge Merchan has become a free-form trial where he's calling really difficult questions on the fly. And I think he could have a serious problem on appeal when several, 3 or 4, reserved appellate judges can take a look at this.
So will this be overturned on appeal? Yes, that's what every legal expert tells us. Former litigator and now extremely smart person and entertaining person online, Viva Fry, joins the program now to explain. Viva, thank you so much for being on the program. I appreciate the car shot, man, and the dual glasses is rad.
This is a not car vlog. This is a car vlog interview. It's fantastic. Let me know if you hear the rattling of the car. I have it on for the AC because it's real damn hot in Florida. But if the audio is good.
No, it sounds great, man. It sounds amazing. Now, you're somebody who's been able to see far into the future, and you're always correct on these things. You read the lines and then also between the lines. You do that because, well, I mean, everyone can see you're wearing 2 pairs of glasses right now, even. And so it's So it's worth it's worth asking what happens. Can you game theory for us? What happens if it's a hung jury? What happens if they find Donald Trump guilty?
I mean, I don't know what happens if they find him guilty. I predicted that they would, but listening to the judge's jury instructions, I mean, even listening to those as a biased jury, I don't know how anybody can come to a conviction where he's talking about, objective bias of the witnesses. You can only believe Michael Cohen as an accomplice if there's corroborating documentary evidence, which there isn't. So listening to it, I predicted he's going to get convicted, but I hope that I'm wrong. I'm wrong in my predictions just because I'm an idealist and still a little optimistic. But I do think he's going to get convicted, and I would think it's going to get overturned on appeal. The question is, are they going to try to lock him up on this? There's no realm of the rational universe where they could. It's, if in theory he's got 180 years, facing 180 years based on all the charges because it's 34 felony charges. There's no realm of the universe where he goes to jail for this, in my view. But we're not in a rational realm of the universe anymore. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know, maybe they make him serve one day. Or, Marchand reminded the jury, I issue the verdict or the sentence. You guys issue the verdict. If he says 1 day in jail just to prove a point, who knows? It'll get suspended or it'll get paused during an appeal, presumably. But I'm cautiously optimistic that there might be a hung jury. Or, I said as a joke, 3.141592655% chance of an outright unanimous acquittal. That's pi, by the way, people. But we'll see. But I don't know. We've crossed so many Rubicons. They might go for, Marchand might go for like 1 day in jail just to prove a point.
So this does seem to be the angle that they're going for, because there would be an orgasmic reaction from the psychosexual left who's always wanted to see Donald Trump in a jumpsuit. And even if it's just for an hour, Juan Marchand's daughter would make an enormous amount of money because then they promised to put Trump in jail, and now they've put Trump in jail. Yet what you're seeing out of if you're able to actually read between the lines, you're seeing panic. Joe Biden giving an address from the White House, the Biden campaigning in front of the courtrouse with Robert De Niro yesterday.
Betty,
these are not positions of strength. This is panic.
It's the kangaroo show court outside the courthouse. Can you believe that they say this isn't the political persecution, but we're going to campaign outside the courthouse and then have the frothing at the mouth, smooth brain, rabid Robert De Niro come out and talk about how Trump, who left the office in 2021, will never leave if he's put back into office. I do think it's panic, but they are also, they're cornered animals, and those are the most dangerous. And I mean that not so much metaphorically anymore. They're actually dangerous in what they're trying to do. But you remember the meme of the woman screaming, "No!" as Trump is being inaugurated. If he gets convicted, they'll be screaming like in orgiastic joy on the streets, like, "Oh, we finally got him. He's a felon now. Even if it gets overturned in appeal in a year, Biden's got his talking point. Hakeem Jeffries has got his talking point. Convicted felon. Do you want to re-elect a felon?" But everything they're doing is backfiring, and it only gets sinister as of in terms of what they do, given everything they're doing is backfiring.
Yeah, Chris Rock weirdly said it best, something I suppose I've never said on the show, but Chris Rock said, if you arrest him, man, you're going to turn him into Tupac. He's going to sell more records. I don't think that the Americans will be assuaded by the convicted felon thing. I don't think they're going to. I think that most people will see through this. Maybe I'm a little too sunny-eyed, cheery-eyed, or optimistic, but.
Well, I mean, I didn't hear Chris Rock say that, but turning him into Tupac has a double meaning, because I think that they want to turn him into Tupac in the ultimate sense. But as far as I'm concerned, it's all a question of demonizing in the hopes that they can somehow, I don't know, they'll change new laws after if they get a conviction. Well, now he's a convicted felon, so maybe we go back and revisit that Disgrace Act and see if we amend it. They've shown the propensity to change laws, control the flow of information, like they described back in yeah, that's the best meme ever. The Robert De Niro. But I mean, who knows what they do after they get the conviction?
You brought it up, so we thought
it's a thing of beauty. But they'll try to find another way to change more laws, or maybe reinvigorate their attempts to have him removed from the ballot. He's not an insurrectionist, but now he's a convicted felon, and come up with some novel theory that they can use to time up until November. But the bottom line, I mean, I don't like the Tupac analogy because of how Tupac ended up, and I do sincerely and genuinely believe they're trying to whip up unhinged, I'll say lefties, but it could be anybody, unhinged people, give them the political permission slip that they need to do bad things to Trump because now he's a convicted felon. And how on earth can we have a democracy with a convicted felon in the White House?
Yes. So could you give us, you're a very optimistic guy. You have good positive energy. You have a beautiful family. And these are the kind of things that like give a man like hope for the future. Can you give us the sunny side of the street? Because what we've seen from multiple people who've been inside of the courthouse and what we've heard from multiple people who've been reporting from inside the courthouse is they're looking at this jury and they're saying these jurors don't understand, like they're not buying this. They hated Michael Cohen. They couldn't believe, like they were insulted by Stormy Daniels. Why do you need to know if Donald Trump wears a condom or not? Like they were disgusted by the courthouse and by these star or porn star witnesses. And so the jury pool itself, even though it's from Manhattan and they tried to rig that, does not seem convinced of this. Do you think there'd be a hung jury here? Do you think there's an option for that?
Oh, I mean, I think there is because, look, in as much as I predicted a conviction, it was before the trial. The trial's been the biggest debacle on the face of the planet. I mean, it's not an understatement. It's a joke of a trial to anybody with half a brain. And like, you know, my partner there, in my partner-in-law, Robert Barnes, during one of our Sunday shows, he's like, this is what the closing argument should be. The prosecution thinks that your political bias is going to overtake your rational, logical, lawful mind. They think you're going to be more politically biased than you value the Constitution. It's an insult to you. And I mean, I have to think, forget the lawyers. I don't trust the lawyers on the jury any more than I trust anybody else, and I don't trust lawyers. But they've seen this. Stormy Daniels, a woman who lies left, right, and center, lies about lying, and then lies about having lied. And then you get Michael Cohen, their star witness, whose testimonial evidence is the linchpin to connect the payment to the instructions of that payment. And then, you have him admit on the stand, I stole $30,000 from Trump from the very monies I'm telling you he told me to pay to Stormy Daniels. I mean, you have to think that they're not stupid and that they have a little bit of pride. And I don't even think that there's the same threat that there was in the Chauvin trial as to the jury members. Like if they acquit now, I don't think there's going to be the same political backlash, the same threats on their lives and well-being that there would have been in a jury in Chauvin to come to the right verdict as far as I'm concerned. So I think right now what we've seen is actually a shift in the political social tide that an acquittal might actually be seen as reasonable jury members versus the conviction, which will be seen as partisan hackery.
Speaking of partisan hackery, there's this ruling that came from the judge, and perhaps with your legal background, you could explain this to me, where 4 jurors could come to a conviction. They could assume that one crime, Trump's guilty of one crime. 4 more could assume he's guilty of another crime, and then 4 more, and then the judge would like put it all together in some like little kaleidoscope, and then string that all together as like a unanimous guilty. Have you ever seen anything like this? Isn't that fundamentally unconstitutional?
Look, I don't think there's been very many things about this trial that have been constitutional, but set that aside. And my legal expertise, I'm no longer practicing. I did civil law in Quebec, but I can understand things. And I know, so I've made sense of that instruction. The question was, or the instructions were, you do not need to have unanimity on the underlying crime, because the way I have understood this, and I think it's accurate, is that this otherwise would have been a misdemeanor. And in order to jack it up to a 34 charge felony, they had to allege that there was falsification of business records to conceal an underlying an underlying crime, felony crime, sorry. And so the whole question of this trial is, what the hell was the underlying felony crime that was allegedly being falsified to cover up? And so the judge came in and said, you don't need to unanimously agree on the underlying crime. What a flipping load of crap. I will not swear because it's not my show, but what a load of crap. Because none of us even knew what the underlying crime was. MSNBC, in their political pundit talking, they're like, why haven't they told us what the underlying crime was? And I'm pontificating. How does the defense make closing arguments before the prosecution, and before the prosecution has specified what the alleged underlying felony crime is that allows this to be jacked up from a misdemeanor to a 34 felony charge? And the judge says, you don't have to have unanimity on that. You have to have unanimity on a conviction of the falsification of business records to cover up an underlying felony, but you don't all have to agree on what that underlying felony is. It's as much of a cooked kangaroo court show trial to arrive at a conclusion as you could possibly have. So that's what the judge is doing. He's just trying to bake this cake to increase the likelihood that you have an unconstitutional cake as a final product. And, these are all the ingredients that he can throw in without making the cake himself. And then in his closing instructions to the jury, he's like, I've been totally biased, and if you think I've been biased, you're wrong, and don't factor in what you think of my personal bias in this case. It's egregious, but that was the instruction. You don't need to be unanimous on the underlying felony that was allegedly concealed in order to arrive at a guilty verdict. And, you can all disagree and whatever. But if you think there was a felony, whatever it was, if you don't agree, you can still come to a unanimous conviction.
So it does seem like the possibility of this being overturned on appeal is incredibly high. Why go through the trouble? Why not just say Donald Trump is an innocent man right now?
If the judge had half a conscience, if he had any pride or if he had any shame, he would have dismissed it on whatever the equivalent of a directed verdict is. Remember in the Michael Flynn case with his partner Bihan Rafikian, and he was convicted by a jury on alleged FARA violations, Foreign Agent Registration Act violations, and the judge said, "Look, no reasonable jury could come to a conviction in this case, so I'm disregarding the conviction." They made a motion, I think it's a motion for directed verdict, to say the evidence does not allow for a jury to even be, have this submitted to them for adjudication because the evidence is not there, and a judge, as a matter of law, must dismiss this now and not submit it to a jury. And Judge Juan Marchand, who's as corrupt as the day is long, whose daughter's making money off of this, who's raising money for Adam Schiff, other political action committees, he basically skirted around re-deciding on the directed verdict question. This should not have been submitted to a jury, is how bad the case was. But the judge is so corrupt, he initially denied the motion for directed verdict and now on appeal, in as much as one could make a prediction in law. And this should have been dismissed on its face before being submitted to a jury. But the judge has his instructions. I made the joke. Everybody in this case is a political operative. The judge is a political operative. Alvin Bragg is a political operative. Soros funded Alvin Bragg. Stormy Daniels is a political operative. Michael Cohen is a political operative. And this is a political operation to try to take down the president and interfere with his reelection.
Viva, final question for you, because I think this is really important because it's, you step back and you say, what are people going to learn from this? Because this will be written down, and it's obviously going to be written down in textbooks for forever. The first time that a president and then a leading candidate for president has ever had to be brought into a criminal trial. And if you were going to do that, you'd assume it'd have to be airtight. But this thing has been real sloppy. It seems like this thing's going to go down in history as just total shambles. What will be the lessons learned here? And as law students study this.
They say history is written by the victors, which is why it's very important that the right people win this battle. I do think one way or another, people are going to look back on this era. And I think it goes back to 2016. I just finished a book by Tom O'Neill called Chaos about CIA, Charles Manson, mind control back in the 60s. I am thoroughly convinced that this entire Trump derangement syndrome, which started in 2016, is something of a psychological operation. And, we're witnessing iterations of it over time. In law, the Turleys of the world are going to end up being vindicated. And the, what's his face? Not Mark Elias, Lawrence Tribe. The Lawrence Tribes of the world have been discredited in real time. We don't need the history books to discredit them any further. They're the ones who were pushing the removal from the ballot in Colorado, and they get their asses handed to them. Jonathan Turley has been the most objective legal analyst, other than Robert Barnes, if I throw him back in again, since the impeachment. They will go down as the ones who were legally insightful and politically sufficiently unbiased to assess this properly. This will go down as a disgraceful era in the legal, judicial, political system of America, perhaps the worst. But I'm sufficiently optimistic to think the right side will prevail, history will write this down properly, and people will look back on this and say, holy crap, did we lose our collective minds back then? And holy crap, we need to ensure that there are safeguards to make sure that we do not have the weaponization of all aspects of government against political rivals ever again.
So I encourage you to follow Viva's Rumble account and YouTube account. He has such sharp takes on this stuff, and also it's high energy and entertaining, and you get a lot of car videos from the guy, and he's willing to join us even though he's out doing out doing errands. I'm not exactly sure what for, but out trying to buy gas. I guess you take out a second reverse home mortgage to try to afford groceries these days. But he joined our program, and we just say thank you, Viva.
Benny, thank you very much.
Here we go. 605,000 Patriots. Can't be wrong. Follow him on X. Godspeed, sir, wherever you're heading.
That's me. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
I love how you can hear the turn signal when he's signing off. You can hear the man is on the road. We are online, ladies and gentlemen. The jury deliberating right now. We are awaiting what may or may not happen in the court. Again, I believe that a large and long deliberation is something that may not be good for the president, but it's may very well be a quick decision. It could happen live. It could happen at any time, ladies and gentlemen. So we await this moment. Meet the jurors who will deliver a verdict in Trump's hush money trial. All eyes of the world on the 12 jurors who are in deliberations right now. Who are they? 5 women and 7 men heard evidence in the historic case for 5 weeks and began deliberating just an hour ago. Whether Trump is guilty of falsifying business records. And that's it. Okay, got it. All right. Well, statute of limitations ran out on that a long time ago. They listened to X-rated testimony from porn star Stormy Daniels, who said she once spanked Trump with a rolled-up magazine. They're set to weigh on whether Michael Cohen, Trump's TikTok-obsessed fixer, is a credible witness. The anonymous panelists delivered a statement to the court during 3 days of jury selection in April that would provide insight into who they are. And here's what we know about them. Juror 1 is the foreman. He works in sales in Harlem. This is where Donald Trump has done campaign rallies before. He said he gets his news from the New York Times, Fox News, and MSNBC. Press X to doubt if you're getting news from all those sources. I don't know about that. Said he didn't have an opinion at all about Donald Trump and asked defense attorney Todd Blanche. And notice he's heard some of the charges against President Trump. So again, this is the foreman of the jury. So this is a powerful position. This man lives in West Harlem. Juror number 2 lives in Hell's Kitchen. Likes hiking music, going to concerts, and life in the Big Apple. His investment banker revealed that he follows Michael Cohen, the prosecutor's key witness, in addition to former Trump advisor Kellyanne Conway on X. He also follows Trump on Truth Social. Okay. When asked by Trump attorney Susan Nechelis if he had any strong feelings about Trump, he says, I might not like some of his policies. He's been good for the United States. So it goes both ways. Here's the question, and this is what makes a trial like this so difficult. Is there anybody in America who doesn't have an opinion on Donald Trump? Donald Trump's the most famous man who ever lived. The most famous man who ever lived. Donald Trump's bigger than the Beatles, bigger than Elvis. Donald Trump, Elvis never had the nuclear arsenal. The Beatles never had a standing army. Donald Trump's been commander-in-chief, and he's been a celebrity the size of the celebrity power of those massive celebrities. Donald Trump's absorbed it all. He's been inside of the zeitgeist for so long. He's in Home Alone 2. He saved Kevin McAllister. He saved Christmas. Kevin McAllister didn't know what the lobby was in the Grand Hotel, and Trump showed him where the lobby was. Without Trump, Kevin McAllister may still well be lost in New York. We don't know. And so Trump saved Christmas. How are you not going to have an opinion on a guy like that? He's an it's an American classic. So this is why it's so hard to actually pick a jury pool. Because how are you not going to have an opinion on Donald Trump? You could go through a lot of places in America and ask about Mitch McConnell, ask about Nancy Pelosi, ask about Kamala Harris. You might get some people scratching their head. You'd be surprised at the number of people who just don't know who the hell Kamala Harris even is. But everybody's got an opinion on Donald Trump, which is what makes this so tough. Juror number 3 is a lawyer who lived in Chelsea. Oh, that's a bad sign. He likes to hike and run and gathers news bits from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Google. Doesn't read too closely. I don't follow the news that closely. I'm embarrassed to say. Juror number 4 is a veteran engineer who lives in West Village. He likes to spend time with his children, enjoys metal working in his free time. Like Trump, he echoed concerns about the courtroom's cooler temperatures at the beginning of the trial. I'm freezing, he told one of the Trump attorneys. Juror number 5 is a Harlem native who teaches middle school. She described herself as a creator at heart. Her passion is photography. She told Blanche that she appreciates the way Trump speaks his mind. He stirs the pot. He speaks his mind. Can't judge him. He speaks his mind. She later said that Trump just says it like it is. Well, okay. Well, all right. You know, you'd have to assume like a teacher from Harlem maybe wouldn't be, maybe wouldn't be the best, but you never know. Here, ladies and gentlemen. Juror number 6 is a software engineer who lives in Chelsea with roommates. She said she likes to dance, snowboard, and watch TV. She has different beliefs than Trump, but doesn't hold it against him. That's a problem right there. It's a free country, she said. Okay. Juror number 7 is a civil litigator in the Upper East Side. He likes to read the Post and other news outlets. He says he enjoys listening to podcasts like Smartless and Car Talk. Oh, that's a problem. Barack Obama and Joe Biden were just guests on Smartless. So you got your problems there. Juror number 8 is a retired wealth manager who lives on the Upper East Side, Long Island native, who likes the great outdoors, fly fishing and skiing, meditation and yoga every morning. Some red flags. Juror number 9 is a speech therapist on the Upper East Side. She said she doesn't watch or follow the news too closely, although she had sharp words about Trump's presidency. I do not agree with a lot of his politics or decisions he made as president, but I have really taken the past few days to reflect and make sure that I could leave the door open. Seems unbelievably biased. Juror number 10 works in commerce. Said he likes to spend time outdoor and with animals, listens to podcasts on behavioral psychology. It doesn't have a strong opinion on Trump. Juror 11 is a product and development manager who lives in Upper Manhattan. She didn't have strong opinions on Trump. She revealed she didn't like his persona, the way he presents in public. Red flags. Juror 12 is Upper East Side resident, physical therapist who likes to run and play tennis. She said she likes to listen to sports-focused podcasts and faith podcasts. Okay, so keep your prayers open, ladies and gentlemen. My production team is telling me that we may or may not potentially have Vivek Ramaswamy for a call-in. So, ladies and gentlemen, we may hear from Vivek on this on this trial. We've promised you that we're going to push it. We're going to do our best to hopefully be live during this decision because the jury is deliberating right now. Nothing says the jury couldn't come back right now with a decision and acquit Donald Trump. They could do it in 5 minutes. They could have done it 5 minutes ago. And they're just going to have to call them all back. And then Donald Trump, they all come into the court. And then you hear about it. And you will hear about it instantly. Right? It might even leak before they decide. This will be an incredible moment. We don't know exactly. So this is, the best that we can do is sort of hold our breath and wait. Ladies and gentlemen, will they send Donald Trump to prison? The Secret Service prepares for possibility of Trump going to jail here. And by the way, our producers are efforting Vivek Ramaswamy to see if he can't pop in and join the show as we potentially await the decision, the ruling here. So we'll see. Secret Service prepares for possibility of Trump going to prison. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, we just got confirmation that Vivek will be joining the show. We're going to work on getting him on. So we'll hear from Vivek about what's happening. Secret Service prepares for Trump to go to jail. when the judge overseeing Donald Trump's criminal trial found on May 6th Trump had violated his gag order, the Secret Service effectively began the work of figuring out what it would be like to protect Donald Trump in prison. Whether to jail the Republican Party's presumptive nominee as president is a choice that Merchan may soon face if the jurors in Trump's hush money case vote to convict him. Closing arguments began on Tuesday with jury deliberations to follow. What exactly would happen if the jury finds Trump guilty is hard to predict. Trump is being tried in New York State Court, where judges have broad authority to determine when sentences are handed down after convictions and what they will be, according to former Manhattan prosecutor Duncan Levin. This differs from federal court, where there is typically a waiting period for conviction and sentencing. It's much more informally done in a state court. I've had cases where the jury comes back and says guilty, and the judge thanks the jury, excuses them, and says, let's sentence the defendant right now, said Levin. Obviously, this is something a little bit different than a typical case. Each of the 34 felony falsification business record charges that Trump is facing could carry a sentence of up to 4 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. He has pleaded not guilty. So if I'm reading that correctly, each of the 34 felony cases charges could be 4 years in prison per charge. They're going to make Donald Trump run for jail from prison, aren't they? They're going to do that? We'll see, ladies and gentlemen. The Norm Eisen, author and attorney, recently analyzed dozens of cases brought by the Manhattan District Attorney Office falsifying business records. Was the most serious charge at arraignment. He found that roughly 1 in 10 of those cases resulted in a sentence of incarceration, but also cautioned that the prosecutors often involved other charges and noted the dynamics of play at Trump's case make the sentence particularly hard to forecast. If Trump is found guilty, Merchan would have a fairly wide leeway in determining a punishment, including sentencing Trump to probation or house arrest, so this may be a way to just get him off the campaign trail. Levin said the option of confining Trump to his home, followed by a period of probation, might be appealing to Merchan, who's repeatedly indicated he's concerned about limiting presidential candidates' ability to speak freely, such as an opinion would allow Trump to do interviews and access social media from his home. On the day Trump was first arraigned, April 4th, 2003, Merchan said he was loath to interfere with Trump's ability to campaign. Oh, yeah, okay. I don't buy this from this jackass. So what's going to happen next? Apparently, the judge has opined on potentially putting Trump in jail. Merchan called incarceration truly the last resort for me, saying, I am worried about people who would execute that sanction. The court offers the correction officers, Secret Service detail, among others. Still, that day, he cautioned Trump that jail is not out of the question. I want you to understand that I will, if necessary and appropriate, put you in prison. So, on the spot, ladies and gentlemen, this judge may sentence Donald Trump to jail. On the spot. You would presumably have to go to Rikers Island in New York, which is quite infamous for lapses in security and inmate deaths. We've covered on the show many times. This may well be the way that they try and assassinate Donald Trump. This may well be. I mean, we're going to see. To our knowledge, there has been no ruling in this case. The deliberation continues. And will we get a decision today? We certainly hope so. Ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, we're excited to say that Vivek will join the program. He just is going to take a couple of minutes to get set. So we're going to have Vivek getting set, and he'll be joining to talk about all of the updates in the trial today. Perhaps we'll ask him about Hunter's baby mama, because if there is somebody who should be on trial right now, it should be Joe Biden for showering with his daughter and for getting his kid out of prison again and again and again. You can go all the way back to Hunter Biden at 18, when he was first busted with a crack pipe doing drugs on a boardwalk in New Jersey. We've never seen the mugshot of Hunter Biden. Why would that be? You ask yourself the question. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now it turns out that the charade is beginning to crumble, as there will be a new book that's going to be released during the Democrat National Convention from Hunter Biden's baby mama. Hunter Biden's baby mama to release bombshell memoir on the president's granddaughter and her life with his son during the Democrat National Convention. This is going to be wall to wall. Also, Alex, let's definitely grab that. Let's definitely grab that that clip. Jesse Waters doing the research. Like, why has there been no Hunter Biden mugshots? He's been arrested like a bunch of times. He was arrested at 18. Who got him out of prison? Interesting. London Roberts, who was the, I believe she was a adult dancer, but now is author, London Roberts. Hopefully we can get an interview with her. That'd be awesome. The woman who had an out-of-wedlock child with Hunter Biden will release a tell-all book on their relationship amid the summer's Democrat National Convention. This is not good. On Tuesday, Skyhorse Publishing announced, not good for the Bidens. It's amazing to actually see it's amazing to actually, executive producer ALX tells me that they are actually working on booking London Roberts, and we look forward to speaking with her live on this program. On Tuesday, Skyhorse Publishing announced, Out of the Shadows, My Life Inside of the Wild World Hunter Biden, which will be released on August 20th during the DNC convention. The book seizes a roller coaster ride of a relationship between Hunter and Roberts, who gave birth to 5-year-old Navy Joan Roberts in August 2018. He was sitting there wearing nothing but parrot boxer briefs, organizing his pipes on the Rosemont Seneca desk, presumably his crack pipes, on the Rosemont Seneca desk, Roberts wrote in a brief excerpt shared. I am sitting in Barack Obama's actual chair from the Senate floor, he said. I took another look at Hunter. This is directly from the book. This kind of intense and startlingly transparent man, and thought, this is definitely a guy I want to know better, Roberts recalled. The publishing house teased that Roberts' book will touch on the drug cook working in Rosemont Seneca's kitchen, strip clubs where Hunter might try to pull the pole himself. Oh, okay, so Hunter Biden was a stripper as well. Oh, all right, gotcha. All you need to do is do like 2 swipes through the laptop to see Hunter Biden's a deeply weird and degenerate individual. Roberts was reportedly working on at a strip club in Washington, D.C. during a brief fling with the first son. Teases that Roberts protected Hunter from would-be terrorists in New York City, and described an altercation between a baby mama and a crazed MMA fighter involving 2 guns. The book will reveal dozens of other stories that make the laptop debacle seem routine. The relationship between Hunter and Roberts happened in late 2017 amid a particularly tumultuous time in Biden's life as he became addicted to crack and cocaine. After his brother's death, he'd also been dating Beau Biden's widow, Haley, so he was shagging his dead brother's widow. It's always a sign of somebody who's incredibly mentally stable and sound. So this is what we always say this, buckle up and get ready. It's going to get more insane. It's going to get more crazy. And so here we are. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if ALX, did we source that? Did we get that clip? Yeah, there we go. All right. How much will they be able to get away with it? I guess is the question. What will they be able to get away with this kind of like fake narrative that Joe Biden is this upstanding, deeply honorable individual who has no foibles and is just a gentle old grandfather trying to steady the ship in this country? Or is he a deeply degenerate criminal who's raised an absolute disaster of a family and betrayed this nation? And will the house of cards finally collapse as he loses allies and friends because, well, victory is unifying, and if you're losing, then, well, people will turn on you. And we're seeing actually quite a bit of that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is very remarkable clip. I'm not sure that this is the right. I'm not sure if this is the right clip, ALX, but nonetheless, the Hunter Biden saga is about to spiral out of control because Hunter Biden's about to go to court in the coming weeks. So expect our programming to shift quite dramatically to Hunter Biden and covering his gun charges in Virginia, in Delaware, in a Delaware court. Ladies and gentlemen, the Bidens have been skirting the law for a very long time. Are they protected CIA asset? The answer to that is, of course, yes. Here's some reporting to validate it.
Yesterday, we found out Hunter had a mugshot. The mugshot is from his July appearance, and sources tell us it'll be extremely hard to obtain the mugshot because if a U.S. Marshal merely searches the database for Hunter Biden, it'll be flagged and that U.S. Marshal will be fired. So we are calling on all federal marshals close to retirement to do what they think is right. And we'll keep you posted on our FOIA requests because we know how much Hunter loves the camera. Hopefully he's decent.
So you're going to see some real shocking news coming out about Joe Biden. You're already beginning to see some pretty remarkable stories that have been printed, like the story in Politico yesterday. Let's go ahead and pull that up. The story yesterday about the Biden campaign team effectively turning on Joe Biden. The full-on free-for-all that is happening inside of the White House right now. There's an article in Politico yesterday from people that are inside of the orbit of Joe Biden, inside of the campaign orbit of Joe Biden, saying this thing is in shambles. We're going to lose. And everybody knows it. Some of the most important political reporters, some of the people that we follow, have said, that Biden campaign and their campaign rallies, if you can call them that, have sort of like the aura of a funeral to them. Hey guys, grab me that Politico article, please, on the funeral element of the Biden campaign. Really important stuff here because as you watch sort of like people don't like to be part of the losers. So as you watch the crumbling of a political dynamic, like as people smell blood in the water, they're going to start turning on Joe. And this is what we're seeing. Check this out from yesterday. Dems in full-blown freak out over Biden. One advisors and Democrat donors are keeping running lists of why Biden will lose. This is wild. A pervasive sense of fear has settled in the highest levels of the Democrat Party over President Joe Biden's re-election prospects, even among office holders and strategists who previously expressed confidence about the coming battle with Donald Trump. All year, Democrats have been on a joyless and exhausting grind through the 2024 election. But now, nearly 5 months from the election, anxiety has morphed into palpable trepidation, according to more than a dozen party leaders and operatives. The gap between what Democrats will say on TV and in print and what they'll text their friends has only grown as worries have surged about Biden's prospects. You don't want to be the guy who is on the record saying we're doomed or the campaign's bad or Biden's making mistakes. Nobody wants to be that guy, says a Democrat operative. In close touch with the White House, granted to speak freely, Biden is stubbornly poor polling and stakes for the election are creating a freak out, they say. This is always a really, really bad look. This is always a terrible, terrible look when the team turns against you. And that is exactly what's happening here. The team, like Biden's team, expect more of this. So as Biden's, especially if Donald Trump's acquitted here, if Donald Trump's acquitted today, expect that the house of cards is going to fall. Don Jr. said it really nicely in his comments. Like, they used to have all these celebrities backing them up. Where are the celebrities? The Rock, Cardi B, all these rappers, all these musicians. Nobody is supporting Biden anymore. They have to dig into the barrel basement and get Robert De Niro. And now, again, if they acquit Donald Trump today, If Donald Trump's able to hold up another newspaper and say, most acquitted man on earth, Donald Trump, then like we're toast. Expect more of this. But this is wild. Okay, so here in this article, you have people who are in close touch with the White House. What does that mean? That means they're from the White House, essentially backstabbing Joe Biden, saying that there is a freak out and that we're doomed. Let's continue to read. This isn't, oh my God, Mitt Romney might become president. It's, oh my God, democracy might end. Okay, sure. Well, okay. Clutch your pearls. All right. Like, please, like, have a Xanax. Chill out. Democracy might end because people actually vote for Donald Trump because the American people don't like that you've destroyed the country. Yeah. Despite everything, Trump is running ahead of Biden in most battleground states, raised far more money in April. Landscape may become worse for Democrats as Trump's hush money trial concludes and as the one involving Hunter Biden begins in Delaware. The concern has metastasized in recent days as Trump jaunted to some of the country's most liberal territories, including New York and New Jersey, to woo Hispanic and black voters, as he boasted, improbably, that he would win in those areas. Why not? What has Democrats done for those areas? What do you have to lose, as Donald Trump would say? He's long lagged Biden in cash on hand. Trump's fundraising outpaced the president by $25 million last month and included a record-setting $50 million haul from Palm Beach in Florida. Vivek Ramaswamy was actually at that event. Vivek Ramaswamy will be on our program here in just a moment, and we'll ask him about it. One advisor to major Democrat Party donors provided a running list that has been shared with funders of nearly 24 reasons why Biden will lose, ranging from immigration to inflation to the president's age, the unpopularity of Kamala Harris, to third-party candidates like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Donors ask me on an hourly basis about what I think, the advisor said, saying it's so much easier to show them, and while they read it, I can pour a drink. Look at this quote. This quote is insane. They keep running lists in the White House. Biden advisors keep a long running list of why Biden's going to lose. And then when they're asked about it, they can just drink themselves silly. The advisor said, the list of why we could win is so small, I don't even keep it on my phone. Meaning there are no reasons why they're going to win. They're admitting this to the press. This is what they're saying to the media, to the corporate press, Politico. So what's the reality? How bad is the reality here? This is incredible. It goes on to say that during Biden fundraisers, people who are asked to spend more money or pay more money, like, they get laughed out of the room. Laughter ripped through the room, but Healy's voice turned serious with unusual urgency. The governor implored the room of high-dollar donors and local Democrat leaders to think long and hard about the stakes of the election. This is talking about the governor of Massachusetts, begging for more money, and everybody laughing at her. Democrat donors are laughing at her. There have been a few moments. By the way, this article just hit the wires. It's not been up for 40. It's not even been up for 24 hours. And you've seen some real panic here. The Trump team has shared this article. Jason Miller of the Trump team shared this article. There have been a few moments in Biden's term as president that have been second-guessed. His aides have made sport of sneering at grim predictions, compiling dossiers of headlines and clips. The president was underestimated. Biden campaign aides point to some positive polls, including the battleground states. Trump comparative lack of campaign infrastructure in key states. Okay, got it. But it's starting to look like everything is turning against them. So some of the bigger players in the swing state politics in this article, Biden supporters who remain optimistic say they'd rather be him than Donald Trump before rallying around abortion and issues of reproductive rights, which they call a fundamental game changer. We have to run a campaign where, honestly, we drive home the message that Donald Trump wants to take us back to the 19th century. Got it? Okay. But Democratic critics of the campaign approach, while agreeing that abortion should be a winning issue, so they're challenged when they press to say whether Biden will actually win. Is there actually a path for Joe Biden to win? Said longtime Democratic strategist Pete Giranko. If they frame the race, this race is, are you better than you were 4 years ago? Then we lose every single day and twice on Sunday. What a remarkable commentary. So if they pull the old, like Ronald Reagan, were you better now than you are 4 years ago? Then they lose every single day, they're saying. Truly, truly remarkable. Swing state of Michigan, Democratic Representative Lori Pashowski says that Biden's standing is so tenuous that down ballot Democrats can't rely on November on the top of the ticket to pull us along. Joe Biden is actually getting crushed at the top of the ticket. He will hurt Democrats down ballot. In 2020, it was hard enough energy to get Donald Trump. In 2020, there was enough energy to get Donald Trump out there where other things on the ballot brought young people in subsequent elections. And this is no longer the case. I worry because we've had 4 years with a stable White House, particularly young voters don't feel the sense of urgency that it might not remember how disastrous 2017 was right before the Trump administration took over. Yeah, nobody thinks the Trump administration was disastrous. Everybody remembers the Trump administration as being far better in every conceivable way. Remember when gas was $1 a gallon? Or you could buy a house? Remember when your dollar went 50% further? This article just goes on and on and on, again and again and again. People in dark blue districts saying effectively, we're toast because the Democrat Party has gone full communist. And people aren't buying it anymore. And this trial effectively undergirds that criticism. I mean, really what this article is about is a bunch of Democrats complaining that the party has gone so far left and is so out of touch with the American people. Think Robert De Niro whining and mewling and bitching in front of the courthouse yesterday. Think Robert De Niro complaining and crying in front of the court yesterday. And that's their spokesperson for regular Joe America. A totally and complete embarrassment, ladies and gentlemen. And that's the person they trot out to say, we feel your pain. Robert De Niro. This is like one after another. This article goes on for like another 10,000 words. You have Democrat after Democrat after Democrat after Democrat saying we're screwed. We're screwed. And we're drinking ourselves to sleep because the American people think that we're Marxists. And we are Marxists. And we're behaving like it. This trial, if they come back with guilty, then in this trial, they're going to say, this is just a Marxist rigged jury. The entire process has been rigged from the beginning. They're going to put Donald Trump in prison. Donald Trump said many times, like, put me in jail. Make me Nelson Mandela. Let's do it. If they find Trump acquitted, then Donald Trump gets probably the biggest bump in the polls in history. And Donald Trump gets to do a ticker tape parade down Madison Avenue holding up a newspaper that says acquitted. Remember what he did last time? Remember Donald Trump did last time when he held up the newspapers? Let's get that. He did this at the White House. Let's actually get that clip. Donald Trump's going to use this opportunity. He's going to use this moment. They're such idiots for giving Donald Trump this platform. It's going to backfire. And the people who are already a little bit concerned about like how far left the country swung and losing touch with regular Americans who don't want to see their leading politicians prosecuted, this trial is not helping that out. It's hurting that. Jonathan Turley in front of the court just moments ago saying effectively this, talking about the possible outcomes here. None of them good for Democrats. None of them. Let's go. No? Okay. All right. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, sorry, we got to get this loaded up.
So let's talk a little bit about the jury, since they are the center of attention right now, even though they're noshing on probably what I expect would be some good New York deli. 7 men, 5 women. Juror number 1 is a man who works in sales. Juror number 2, a man who works in investment banking. Imagine that, New York. Number 3 is a man. He's a corporate lawyer. That's one of our attorneys. Juror 4, a man, security engineer. Juror 5 is a teacher. She's a woman. Juror 6 is a woman, software engineer. Juror number 7, a man who is a civil litigator. That's our second attorney. Juror number 8 is a man who is a retired wealth manager. Juror 9 is a woman, a speech therapist. Juror 10, a man who works in commerce. Juror 11, a woman who works in product development. And Juror 12, a woman who works as a physical therapist. That is a broad cross-section of New York society, if ever we have seen one. A couple of attorneys in there, as we've mentioned before. How do you think, based on your experience, the deliberations proceed here?
Well, the biggest wild card are going to be the 2 attorneys. I've always opposed having attorneys on juries, not because I can predict how they're going to vote, but because of the influence they can have on other jurors. This is a very difficult case for a jury to be able to work through. It's a very easy case to vote to convict, but you just accept what the government might have said. But if you delve into these allegations, they break apart. But these attorneys could have a big influence in cutting that off in deliberations.
So what's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen? What's going to happen? Here's what we've learned so far today. And ladies and gentlemen, we do have some breaking news. Vivek is getting set. Vivek will join us in just a moment. So what we've learned today is that a judge in a trial that should have never been brought, important reminder, ladies and gentlemen, that this trial, this charge, something that had been drummed up for years, this charge was brought to the DOJ. They declined to prosecute. This charge was brought to the FEC because it is a federal elections crime, after all, right? That's what they say. They declined to prosecute. This charge was brought to Manhattan District Attorney's Office, Alvin Bragg's predecessor. They declined to prosecute. This charge then was dropped entirely. Matthew Colangelo, of the number 3 guy at the Department of Justice under Joe Biden, took a demotion, left the Department of Justice to go work for Alvin Bragg, slob Alvin Bragg. Only then was this charge resuscitated because it had then worn out all of the statutes of limitations. They could not bring any charges against Donald Trump. It was a dead case run by a bunch of charlatans, porn stars, goofballs, and low IQ, smooth brain morons. This dead case was then resuscitated with a Joe Biden apparatchik directly from the Department of Justice and was turned into the only case they're going to be able to bring against Donald Trump before the election. This is the case you're looking at here. It was given to a seething Biden-donating judge whose daughter, of course, is a massive fundraiser for Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and now it stands before a jury made up of people from dark, dark blue Manhattan with every conceivable element of bumper car rigging by the judge throughout the trial. We've heard the judge freaking out, screaming on the stand. We've heard from people inside and outside of the courthouse, everyone from Alina Habba to members of Congress who've been inside and saying that we've just never seen anything like this. It is rigged, and it is a system that is designed to simply do the wrap-up smear, right? To just simply smear Donald Trump with he's a felon, right? You can't elect a felon. The entire design here is just smear him enough that you can get a couple extra points in the election. Will it work? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have here a video of the last time that they tried to get Donald Trump, the last time they tried to impeach Donald Trump, and what Donald Trump did directly afterwards. Expect this when they maybe acquit Donald Trump this hour, this minute. We don't know. Here we go. This is what Donald Trump did last time. Here's Trump on stage waving. This was after Trump was acquitted, and Donald Trump then asks for a newspaper and holds it up. There you go. Expect a lot more of that, ladies and gentlemen. There you go. Donald Trump holding up all of the newspapers. Expect much, much more of that. The last time that Vivek Ramaswamy was in front of the court, he gave an absolute blistering, flamethrower defense of Donald Trump, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it sounded like right before Vivek entered the courtroom with Donald Trump and was able to effectively stand metaphorically and physically behind the president. Vivek's commentary to the media outside of the court, this is from 2 weeks ago.
The whole case that Alvin Bragg has brought depends on one premise for them to charge this as a felony, is that Donald Trump somehow should have used campaign funds to make an allegedly personal payment. Yet if he had done that, their case against him would be even stronger. This is garbage. That is the best proof that you have that if they're going to get him Cohen or get him coming, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. This is a sham. This is not the United States of America. This is some third-rate banana republic. If this were happening in another country, we would be laughing at them as a sham democracy. I am ashamed as an American citizen to sit here in a courtroom watching the former leader of the free world, and let's be honest, likely next leader of the free world, sitting with the indignity in this dingy third-rate courtroom with fourth-rate prosecutors and a fifth-rate lawyer on the stand as a witness, who actually is violating attorney-client privilege left and right. Nobody's even talking about that. So this is a shame on the spirit in our country's history, but we will get through it and be stronger because you know who ultimately actually cast the vote on this case? It's not just the jurors in that jury box. It's every one of you at home. It's every American who votes this November to say no to the weaponization of justice.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vivek joining our program I know I've been saying this a lot, but apparently we're having a small technical issue. We do the show live. We are live right now. And we've been live for the last 3 hours. Continuously. No commercial breaks. Ready to rock, ready to roll. Had a lot of wonderful guests join our program. But part of the issue of doing the show live is obviously technicalities that pop up here and there. Nonetheless, we are very, very thankful for our friends, members of Congress, legal experts, Viva joining from his car to talk through all this as we await this decision. Fox News is awaiting this decision out front of the courthouse, ladies and gentlemen, and they have multiple legal experts standing out front of the courthouse talking about the possible outcomes as we may well get a decision at any second, at any time. We do not know exactly how the jury is going to return here, and we don't know when. But we know they're in deliberations. They could be done. According to all available reporting, the jury seems very, very done with this trial. What do some of the reporters and legal experts out front of the court have to say, including former prosecutor and member of Congress Trey Gowdy? Let's have a listen.
How in the world can ordinary citizens follow this? I mean, I have a law degree. I wasn't a great lawyer, but I was one for a long time. I had a hard time following it. So, and then when the judge won't send the instructions back, how in the world can you expect people to remember the intricacies of what he charged? To Andy's point, it's like a buffet. I mean, you're a member of the jury and you say, okay, I want this crime. I want that crime. Where I come from, something is a crime when it's been proven beyond a reasonable doubt or when somebody admits to it. So what are the elements of these three additional crimes. I just think jury instructions are incredibly important. The notion that you can't have them back there while you're deliberating is dumbfounding to me.
You know.
So that's Trey Gowdy, obviously a prosecutor and somebody who did relatively good prosecution, you would say, of Hillary Clinton. At least he was the one guy who actually asked questions about Benghazi and so forth. It's not something that we miss on this program. It's not lost on us that it's Donald Trump in the courthouse and not Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton. People who have demonstrable, dark crimes at their backs. Bill Clinton was listed hundreds of times in the Epstein document. Why they're not inside of the courthouse? Why we're focusing on Donald Trump right now inside of the courthouse, and not them is a real question to wrestle with as we head into the future. And it's a real question to ask about this country. Is this a free country? What is the effort to save this country look like? What kind of energy is that going to take? And what does that bright future look like? We're an optimistic show. Joining us now, somebody who's always been pretty clear-eyed and optimistic, and somebody who can speak to that future and can also speak to what it was like inside of the courtroom with Donald Trump. The great Vivek Ramaswamy joins the program now. Vivek, thanks for being on the show on such short notice. We thought we'd just let her rip and see if there's a verdict from a jury. You've actually seen the jury. You sat in the courtroom with Trump and looked at the jury. What are your takeaways here as this trial is now in deliberation?
So these things are always very difficult to predict based on the nonverbal gestures. I did see a couple of people who looked very skeptical with some of the arguments that the prosecutor was making. Keep in mind, though, the day I was there was the day where they finished the direct exam and began the cross-exam of Michael Cohen. So there was a lot to be skeptical about. But I am hopeful, regardless of political affiliation, that those jurors get to the right answer of understanding there's no actual crime here. Nobody even could tell you what exactly is the crime that Donald Trump is being charged with. So to be able to convict him of that crime, you first have to be able to name the crime itself. And so hopefully that is a basic test that the jurors apply in arriving at their judgment. But I do think, Benny, the ultimate verdict's in November. And either way, let's play this out. Let's say Donald Trump is acquitted. Okay. Everybody will see this prosecution for what it is, which is Alvin Bragg. He ran for office. The political officer running for political office on the promise of going after Donald Trump. Classic case of you show me the man, I'll show you the crime. That's exactly what Alvin Bragg did with a judge whose own daughter is, can't make this stuff up, a Democratic fundraising operative who is fundraising for Democrats on the existence of this trial while her own father is presiding over that trial, on the back of charges that if Donald Trump had done the exact opposite thing of what they're charging him for, which is to use campaign money to make those payments, they would actually be going after him with an even stronger case. So it absolutely makes no sense. People will see through that for what it is in the case of an acquittal, which is what I hope for. But even in the case of a guilty verdict, I think against that backdrop of facts where every American looks themselves in the eye and say, I couldn't tell you what Donald Trump was just convicted for and could face prison time for. If they can do it to him, they can do it to you. And I think most people in this country are already seeing it, which is for the same reason why these indictments and then the prosecutions and then this trial has had the adverse impact on many Americans' way of thinking about Donald Trump for the better. I think the same would be true even in the case of a conviction in the context of this trial. It's a third world setting. I've been there in person, open wiring. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's like you're in like a different country in the 1990s. Open wiring. You can sort of see dirty. They tell you to actually wash your hands. They literally, the team I was with, they give out these wipes for your hands based on how disgusting the courtroom is. And yet the only thing more disgusting than the environment of that courtroom is actually what's happening in there. And so I'm hopeful the jury reaches the right verdict, which is an acquittal here. That'll be better for the country. But regardless, I think that the people of this country are going to see through it.
So I know for a fact, I've seen video evidence of this on the internet, that you're a fan of rap and rap music. And without getting too far into the, sort of the iconography of the genre, comedian Chris Rock said, if you charge Donald Trump, you put him in prison, you're going to turn him into Tupac. He's going to sell more records. This is going to backfire. And it seems like it just sort of undergirded the point that you just made there, which is that the idea here is that they did some poll tests. If Donald Trump's a felon, then that'll hurt him electorally. I think that paradigm has shifted. Do you?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it's fundamentally an American character in us, Benny, is who are we? We as a people, and we've always been this way, we're the people who say, no, you don't get to tell me how I live my life or the decisions that I get to make. And so this whole exercise has effectively been telling the voters, you don't get to decide who governs. We do, because we're going to eliminate your choices. And so even for a lot of people who may not agree with 100% of what Donald Trump has said or done in the course of his presidency, to say, no. Okay, I might agree with Donald Trump, but that's up to me to disagree with him. You're not going to tell me that I can't vote for him. And I think it's that fundamentally American rebellious, the American rebellion, the American revolution, that American rebellious instinct that even many in the center and center left are now seeing quietly awakened in them as their inner animal American spirit. Do I agree with, I don't know, pick your policy, tariffs or immigration policy or whatever? Maybe not for a lot of Americans. But they're saying, you will not, over my dead body, tell me who I can and cannot vote for. That's the basic instinct that we're seeing in this reactionary backlash. And I think it's a beautiful thing because it is an American instinct. That is what makes America great, actually. That is what makes us, us. And that's part of what's going to propel Donald Trump back to the White House, assuming the other side isn't going to pull dirtier tricks over the course of the next 6 months, which, you mark my words, get ready for those. That's what's actually going to propel him as the people of this country saying hell no to being forced to be limited to one option on the ballot box.
That's such a great point. You're actually fighting against, because I think of a sort of a Marxist tautology and a fascistic tautology where everybody believes the same thing and you just put your Soviet style, put your political enemies in prison. They fundamentally underestimate the American people and how much we love a guy who's got a mugshot. Johnny Cash has a mugshot. Elvis has a mugshot. Jimi Hendrix has a mugshot. Frank Sinatra has a mugshot. Didn't hurt their careers.
And you know what? Who else would have? Would be like the George Washington and Benjamin Franklin and John Jay and Alexander Hamilton too. So there's a distinctively American spirit about this, which is to say that, obviously we're a nation that stands for the rule of law, but when that rule of law is bastardized, we also stand against that form of tyranny as well. And that's who we are. And so as ugly as this whole trial has been, and as sad as it is to await the verdict of a former president of the United States and the front runner to be the next president against these politicized charges, I mean, just think about the ignominy and just the utter shame as Americans we ought to feel to say this is the country where this is happening. Even in the face of that, there's still a heartening message where we as Americans, we've always, the cussedness of the American spirit at our founding is alive and well today, not just on the right, but across people in this country that feel that sense of injustice. That's who we are, and that's what makes us great. And, I think that's why, regardless of what happens today, I am hopeful that this will be another march towards the future that is, frankly, necessary. I mean, whatever's necessary is possible is what I believe. And I think it is necessary to make sure that we restore not only Donald Trump in the White House, but an actual pro-American vision for this country and the person who actually leads it. So anyway, thanks for having me, man. And you hit me up last minute, but I wanted to join you because it's an important day.
Really quick, because I have to get it. Robert De Niro, did he convince, midget Robert De Niro comes, they trot him out. Did he convince you in his lifts and his shoes? Did he convince you that Donald Trump's guilty yesterday?
Well, maybe he deserves an Oscar for that latest performance. I don't know. I didn't get to see it. I have to say, I saw the pictures of it, and it was going through my social feeds. And I just opted not to stop and watch the video. It just didn't seem that important to me. What Robert De Niro has to say when he's off screen is much less interesting to me than when he's going back to play a role in The Godfather. Stick to what you're good at, and I'll watch him anytime over there. His actual opinions off stage, they say don't meet your heroes. Well, he's a classic case of a guy who you might as well meet him when he's pretending to be somebody else, which is what an actor does. Stick to do what you're doing well, rather than to actually apparently pretend to be the guy that you actually are. So I could care less what he had to say and have to admit I didn't watch it.
Yeah, it's pretty weak defense. You had a very strong defense for the president outside of the courthouse. You stood with him, behind him in the courthouse in the iconic photograph. And Vivek, Godspeed. We know that we're in it to win it, man.
Yep. Amen. Keep it up, man. We'll talk to you.
Amen. What a great point. What a great point about the founding fathers. What an important, like, do you know that a large percentage of the founding fathers actually went to prison? Some of them were brought back to England and never saw their families again. They were completely and totally financially destroyed. They had their entire lives wrecked because they stood up for the American founding, because they had that American spirit. We have the George Washington mugshot here. Is this a moment of the new American founding? That's a question. Is this a moment for new American founding fathers to be constituted? Is Donald Trump part of it? These guys were all criminals. Every one of these guys were criminals. The American founding fathers, every one of them were rebellious and in full and total violation of the laws of the time. And they pledged their sacred honor against these forces of tyranny, and many of them were destroyed for it, imprisoned for it, found guilty, sent back to England, tried in England, and had their entire lives destroyed. Many of them died penniless. These are the founders. These aren't just like people who fought in the Revolutionary War. These are the signers of the Constitution. These guys had a really rough go. We have a very strong history in this nation of people who pledged their sacred honor and sacrificed dearly for it. So when you get somebody like Donald Trump who says, I'm willing to die for this, I'm willing to die, then that's got to be your guy. That's got to be your candidate. You need people who actually believe in those things. What does Joe Biden believe? Joe Biden doesn't even believe in his own church. Joe Biden doesn't even follow the practices of his own faith. Been around, the Catholic Church's been around a lot longer than America. Joe Biden doesn't even have allegiance to them to save his mortal soul, which, like all of us, needs saving, but some need saving more than others. No, Joe Biden doesn't even have allegiance to that. They have no allegiance to this place. They have no allegiance to this country. They view this country as a economic zone, a pass-through, a place to embezzle against to get rich, a husk, the Titanic. They're just strip mining the brass on the Titanic, get as wealthy as possible, and then peace out. So it's an important moment to really clarify who do you support? Are you in favor of the guy who's willing to put his life on the line for this country? That's exactly the kind of president that you should want. We had a better country when we had a bunch of presidents who served in the military. The Teddy Roosevelts come to mind. Eisenhower's come to mind. We used to have service in our country. We used to have people who served. Ronald Reagan was in the Army. We used to have people who actually served their nation, and they were leaders. Richard Nixon, Kennedy. These guys were all. I'm not sure you could call him a war hero. John Kennedy very much was, though, but they actually understood what it means to. They actually understood these principles. Now, what do you have? Over my entire lifetime, the only people you've had as president have been a bunch of draft dodgers like Bill Clinton, Joe Biden. Why didn't Joe Biden go serve in Vietnam? He was perfect age to go serve in Vietnam. John Kerry, George W. Bush, bunch of draft dodgers, Marxists, Barack Obama. Guy clearly doesn't like America. This is been the crop of leadership that has been put forward over the last few years. You've had no man who would be willing to die even for his faith or his family, much less his country. Yet you have Donald Trump saying, you know what? I'm willing to take a bullet for this place. And he metaphorically is right now in this trial, in this case that would have, of course, never been brought. None of these cases would have been brought if Donald Trump just said, I'm not going to run for president again. We're just going to let Nikki Haley do it, right? None of these charges would have ever been brought. Donald Trump would have lived peacefully as a billionaire right? In lapse of luxury, would have never had another problem in his life if he had just said no. But he didn't say no. And now, ladies and gentlemen, there is a moment where we're going to see whether a president, the leading presidential candidate, can be convicted by a rigged jury system, a rigged court, a rigged system, a rigged prosecution via a resident of the White House who has used every conceivable measure to destroy not only just his political opponent, but the entire movement that he represents, the America First movement. It's a beautiful thing. Producer ALX tells us that there is a important clip that is coming from outside of the court, and so we're gonna play that. We've been live here for 3 hours and 30 minutes, and we're gonna sort of stay clear-eyed here. Court sort of adjourns at 4 o'clock. And so will there be a decision today? We're not exactly certain. But it's worth drawing a line in the sand and saying, what kind of country you want to live in? Do you want to live in a fascistic nation where Joe Biden can communicate that he just wants the arrests of his political opponents and their supporters? Is that the kind of country you want? Joe Biden has no actual institutional support. Nobody supports Joe Biden. Nobody's ever shown up with the Joe Biden sign anywhere. You can't find Biden voters. I'm convinced they don't actually exist. Like, do you want a country based on fraudulence, or are we actually a country? Like, are we a nation? Are we a republic? It's a good question. It's a very interesting question. And I think that we're going to find this out in the coming months. In 30 days, Donald Trump debates Joe Biden on stage. Whew, man. Got to go to Atlanta for that one. And in even shorter amount of time, we'll be on stage with Donald Trump in Detroit, Michigan. Turning Point Action event. We'll be speaking with Donald Trump on stage. We'll do our very, very best. We've asked, do our very best to bring you a live interview with Donald Trump. And hopefully we'll be able to pull that off. We'll see. Ladies and gentlemen, live outside of the court right now are a throng of Trump supporters who are speaking live to the media and are talking about why they support Donald Trump and what this movement is all about. I thought as we sort of make decisions here in this holding pattern, it may take the jury, who knows, it may take the jury till the end of the week to decide here. We're not certain. We don't know. It'd be worth maybe to end on an upbeat note here to show you the support that Trump has outside of the courthouse. Go ahead and check this out. This is uplifting.
What is your message? What do you think from this trial? What is your message to the American people about what's happening right now?
That the trial is a sham, that we better wake up, otherwise we are going to lose this country at the hands of the Democrats and radical left that want to destroy this country from within. And this is not about President Trump. This is about the American people. As he said, he's standing in between the deep state and the radical left. And my message to the elites that support the Democrats and radical left, you must understand that the left is going after your wealth. So it's insane that you are supporting a left-wing people who are going after themselves. So shame on them. Trump 2024. And this is about we the people. It's not about President Trump. He should be enjoying his life. He should be traveling, spending time with his family. And he's going through all nonsense because of we the people. So Trump 2024. You are for lose the USA. The long opportunity.
They'll never show that to you. They'll never show you clips like that, man. How powerful. What an inspiration We covered live last week the Harlem rally. It is so important to show what Donald Trump means and what this movement means, because it's more than just one man, what this movement means for the people who live here. It's something that's utterly forgotten. That, like, we, the people, like the people who live here, what's life like for us? Has anything in your life gotten better over the last 4 years? I've welcomed some new children into my family, but that has nothing to do with our government. In fact, quite contrary to the policies that our government makes. But nonetheless, those are decisions between my wife and I and God. Have the prices gotten better? Gas, groceries, home, outlook for the future, your bankroll. Has anything gotten better for you, the American people? That's what you hear in that woman. Sort of a barbaric yelp of somebody who must perhaps be an immigrant based on her accent, or first generation, like saying Donald Trump should be living his life. This is what you see in communist Marxist countries. This is not America. Perfectly crystallized, ladies and gentlemen, that woman's sentiment. In this, the best ad that we've ever heard, best ad we've ever seen. It's not it should be an official Trump ad, but it's not. But it is the case for Trump, as laid out by Tucker Carlson, and it's stronger now than it's ever been. And this is our favorite piece of media out of the campaign cycle. This is something that, again, should be an official ad. It's not, although I believe that Donald Trump has shared it. Said far more eloquently than I could string the words together. The master, Tucker Carlson, giving the argument for why Donald Trump is. Here we go.
Millions of Americans sincerely love Donald Trump. They love him in spite of everything they've heard. They love him often in spite of himself. They love Donald Trump because no one else loves them. The country they built, the country their ancestors fought for over hundreds of years, has left them to die in their unfashionable little towns, mocked and despised by the sneering half-wits with finance degrees but no actual skills who seem to run everything all of a sudden. Whatever Donald Trump's faults, he is better than the rest of the people in charge. At least he doesn't hate them for their weakness. Donald Trump, in other words, is and has always been a living indictment of the people who run this country. That was true 4 years ago when Trump came out of nowhere to win the presidency, and it's every bit as true right now. Trump rose because they failed. It's as simple as that. If the people in charge had done a halfway decent job with the country they inherited, if they'd cared about anything other than themselves, even just a moment, Donald Trump would still be hosting Celebrity Apprentice. They didn't. Instead, they were incompetent and narcissistic and cruel and relentlessly dishonest. They wrecked what they didn't build. They lied about it. They hurt anyone who told the truth about what they were doing. That's true. We watched. America is still a great country, the best in the world, but our ruling class is disgusting. A vote for Trump is a vote against them. That's what's going on in this country.
Trump ought to license that monologue from Tucker and ought to release that ad. That's, I mean, so good. Our ruling class is despicable. They're draft dodgers. They know what service is, serving themselves. That's it. It's all the Clintons have ever done. It's all the Bushes have ever done. It's all the Bidens have ever done. It's all Obama's ever done. There's only one man who's gotten poorer after becoming president. That's Donald Trump. There's only one man who's ever been prosecuted because he won the presidency, and that's Donald Trump. There's only one man who will win the presidency again in spite of all of it, and that's Donald Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, executive producer ALX tells me that we do not have a jury ruling thus far. We do not have any decision yet back from the jury. So is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, I mean, you could argue that it's a good thing because that means that they're actually deliberating. And the longer this goes on, deliberation that happens, the more you can see that there's the chances equal a hung jury, right? If they were back instantly and said, yeah, Trump's guilty, quick verdicts are typically guilty verdicts, right? The prosecution's done their job. The long and drawn out verdicts are the bad ones. The longer this goes, the better it is. And so, ladies and gentlemen, considering the fact that we've been live now for nearly 4 hours, we're going to do something very special. We're going to play a meme roundup of our Western memes for the Trump trial. The theme this week is going to be Western memes, and so it's going to be only Westerns, sort of explaining the Trump trial because it's high noon in New York City. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's play out with some of our memes. We got a couple lined up here that Meme Maker Jerry has made, and Meme Maker Jerry has promised to keep them coming throughout the week. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as we close out here, let's go to some Western memes to set the mood. Good, the bad, and the ugly. It would actually be a great screenplay for what we're seeing right now happening in this courthouse. Tombstone. Some would argue the best Western ever made. Donald Trump in Tombstone, riding in, hell's riding with him.
Huh? Something on your mind?
Just want to let you know you're sitting in my chair.
Is that a fact?
Yeah, it's a fact.
Well, for a man that don't go heeled, you run your mouth kind of reckless, don't you?
No need to go heeled to get the bulge on a tub like you.
Well, I'm real scared.
Damn right you're scared. Go ahead, skin it. Skin that smoke wagon and see what happens.
Listen, mister, I'm getting awful tired of your...
I'm getting tired of your gas. Now jerk that pistol and go to work. I said throw down, boy. Oh! You gonna do something or just stand there and bleed? No?
All right, okay. So there you go, and then the Trump jailbreak meme from today. Jerry says he's got some good stuff cooking. We may not get to by the end of the program. Before the Trump jailbreak meme, ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to support our program, please consider going to BennyJohnson.com and joining the Benny Brigade. This is the way that you can keep us 100% corporate free, that we can do 4-hour-long lives with great insights from 4 different guests, members of Congress, legal experts, really smart analysts, Vivek Ramaswamy, whatever title you'd like to give presidential candidates, right? Like, all on this show. We can do this because we do not have the corporate structure that locks us in and shackles us into what we can talk about and when and how. It's really important, ladies and gentlemen, that we stay free and independent. And joining the Benny Brigade does that for the cost of a large fry at McDonald's per month. You can help keep us free on this program and keep us independent. We thank you for all of your support. Also, the best way we can thank you is to give uplifting news. And some days, I mean, they may say that Donald Trump's guilty. We don't know. The longer this goes on, the better it is for Donald Trump. Will they retire tonight and start again tomorrow? Will the deliberations go into next week? We are not sure. The verdict could come at any time. I think the verdict should be not guilty, but we'll take the jury doesn't find the guy. We can't all decide. We'll take that. Judge is doing his best to rig it against Donald Trump. The forces of evil shall not prevail. And we know that because we read it in the good book. Our verse of the day, ladies and gentlemen, from Matthew 5:8. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. We go through a lot of news on this program, and it becomes depressing sometimes. I'm certainly not trying to play a little violin for myself, but you got to stare just deeply into the darkened sort of pit of evil, and the darkness of evil and the darkness of the human soul to be able to do something like this. I mean, you're trying to put an innocent man in prison. You're trying to destroy an innocent man's life. What they've tried to do to this family, it's just demonic. It's just the blackness of evil. And so it's good to be able to look beyond that and to see into the spiritual realm, to see like the promise that God has for us. And the promise that God has for us is that we are to be victorious in him. And that this place is a sunken place, sadly. And that this is a sunken world. Unfortunately, from the very get, this place has been corrupted. Every single, the times of Noah, Sodom and Gomorrah. Look up to the temptations of Christ, where Satan offers Christ to the world. What's the first temptation of Christ? Hey, I'll bring you up to the top of the mountain. It's not the first temptation, but it's one of the temptations of Christ. He brings Christ up to the very top of the mountain. He says, look at all the kingdoms of the world. I'll give it to you. Well, what does that say? And Christ doesn't say, like, you can't do that. He says, away from me, Satan, right? I'll worship no one other than God, right? I'm not going to worship you. Satan says, I'll give you the world. That means this place is corrupted. In some small part, Satan has the power to do that. But not for long. The victory will be ours. And you can rest in confidence in that. Look clearly upon God and let that be your hope. Don't let your hope fall to man. You will always be sorely disappointed, and because all men are fallen. So don't let your hope be in a political party or even in a movement. Like, place your faith in God, in our Lord, Christ is King. And so, with that, I guess we say this has been a wild run. I guess we'll book out for the rest of the week. We'll book out long shows, bunch of guests, and talk through this because I guess we just don't know. It's almost 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and the court may well adjourn with the jury still in deliberation. And so you just don't know. And so this is a good sign for all of us. And we hope that you were uplifted today. We pray that we can go live with a not guilty verdict for Donald Trump sometime in the near future. And we'll hold that hope close. We ask that you pray, and we ask that you stay salty. Keep the spirit. March on with us. You cannot beat an army of happy warriors, and we aren't going to be defeated. It's your boy Benny. Please enjoy this final meme, Trump jailbreak, and we'll see you.